spots. So for many it is going to be quite a chilly start to the day. Still plenty of low cloud across parts of central and southeastern England. Once again it could spread inland for a time but eventually burning back to the coast through the course of the morning, clinging on to parts of East Anglia, but for many it's going to brighten up to once again wall-to-wall sunshine. Just a bit more cloud across the far north of Scotland. Can't rule out the odd shower in Shetland, but warm sunshine, highs of 20 degrees, possibly higher where the sunshine sticks around.
A positive outlook through the night will power through to a bright day ahead. Boxed Home Battery Storage, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be driving away with this brand new Elnag Baron 560 motorhome. It comfortably sleeps 4, comes with skyroof, integrated kitchen and bathroom, and is worth over £67,000. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that wherever this motorhome takes you, it takes you there in style. For a chance to win a motorhome and cash, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
This is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
down to earth,
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
and most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 12 o'clock on Thursday, the 10th of April. I'm Tom Harwood.
And I'm Emily Carver.
Now, Home Office sources have told GB News that even more local inquiries could be launched after the backlash to the government's initial plans to ditch them. We'll have more on this with Charlie Peters in just a few minutes' time.
We will indeed. More bobbies on the beat, though. That's the government's promise, at least, as they commit to putting 13,000 more neighbourhood officers on our streets. But is the pledge exactly as it seems?
Elsewhere, stock markets have surged this morning following Donald Trump's decision to pause his tariffs for 90 days on most countries, that is, save for China, which itself has been hit with a huge, whopping, gargantuan 125% tariff as the two economic powers of the world continue to fight it out. But what do you make of Trump's shifts in tack? Has Donald ducked?
And a London-based law firm is representing Hamas. Yes, a London-based law firm representing the prescribed terror group Hamas, challenging the Home Secretary to end the ban on the group. And guess what? The lawyers are using the ECHR to claim their designation as a terror group threatens their freedom of speech. Don't know what I'm more angry about this afternoon, Tom. Whether it's a British-based, London-based law firm choosing to represent Hamas, a prescribed terrorist group, calling them a resistance group rather than a genocidal terror group, or the toing and froing on grooming gang inquiries.
I think it is fascinating how this grooming gang story has developed, because when Parliament broke up on Tuesday, it was one of the last things the government did, sneaking out this decision to change the language around the 5 grooming gang inquiries, only having these voluntary inquiries done by, I think it was only 1 committed local authority instead of the 5 that they initially promised.
Yeah, just Oldham.
But now it seems that the pressure, reports like on this channel and elsewhere, seem to have perhaps got to the Home Office.
Yeah, and I do wonder, so Trevor Phillips, who was the Equality and, oh gosh, I can't remember his position exactly, Commissioner of Equality and Diversity and whatever.
And Human Rights.
Yes.
Council.
Him coming out to say that he thinks the Labour Party are worried about the Muslim vote, or the Pakistani vote, sorry. I wonder if that spooked them. Because this does appear to be a bit of a U-turn from Yvette Cooper. And, of course, all the pressure coming from, you know, people we've spoken to.
Yeah, but also don't forget the number of Labour MPs who have the Reform Party breathing down their neck, who are looking at the local elections and perhaps more so the general election in 4 years' time, thinking, are they going to lose their seats? That's got to be a huge amount of pressure on the government.
Well, we'll try and find out exactly what's going on when it comes to these grooming gang inquiries for you, so stick with us for the next 3 hours. But we're going to go to the headlines with Sophia Wetzler.
Tom, Emily, thank you. It's just gone 12 o'clock. These are your headlines. Global markets have bounced back following President Trump's tariff reversal, with the UK's FTSE 100 soaring by more than 6% on opening. Downing Street says the UK will coolly and calmly continue its negotiations after Donald Trump paused his so-called reciprocal tariffs on most of America's trading partners. The 90-day pause on higher tariffs brings almost all nations down to the minimum levy of 10%. It opens a window to strike new trade deals, with most countries invited to the negotiating table. For China, however, the US president raised the levies to 125%, citing a lack of respect from Beijing. China has hit back, slapping retaliatory tariffs of 84% on all US imports, deepening the trade war between the two nations. Now, Home Office sources have told GBNews that the government are now considering more than 5 grooming gang local inquiries. It comes after Safeguarding Minister Jess Phillips said last night that they will not hesitate to go further, despite accusations the plans were being watered down. It follows the government's refusal to hold a national inquiry, instead opting for a more localised approach. Meanwhile, Reform UK leader Nigel Farage has called the government cowardly and suspects there will be a judicial review.
I thought the announcement that was made by Jess Phillips in the House of Commons right on the eve of recess was one of the most cowardly things I've ever seen. You know, I called for a national inquiry. The government tried to head me off at the pass by saying they were going to do 5. They've scrapped those now. The problem is that any inquiry to work, it has to have statutory powers. Otherwise you can't get these northern councils, these northern police forces before you and held to account. I am told there'll be a development coming on Monday, led by somebody who played a very prominent role in exposing the grooming gangs. That'll be coming on Monday, and I suspect the route we're now going to go down is for a judicial review.
In other news, thousands of police officers could return to our streets as part of Labour's plans to tackle the country's shoplifting crisis. The Prime Minister is today expected to announce that police forces will have dedicated teams of officers focused on patrolling town centres at peak times. This is all part of the government's neighbourhood policing guarantee, which will see 13,000 named local officers by 2029. Sakir is expected to say visible policing has fallen dramatically in recent years, with 90% of crime left unsolved. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says at least 155 Chinese citizens are fighting for Russia in the war. His comments come after 2 Chinese fighters were captured by Ukraine, the first alleged proof China is now fighting alongside Russia in the war. Speaking yesterday, President Zelensky claimed there were many more Chinese nationals engaged in the conflict based on information gathered by his government. China, however, has previously denied these claims and called for a sober view of its role in the Ukraine crisis. Meanwhile, a US citizen serving a 12-year prison sentence in Russia has been released in a prisoner swap between Moscow and Washington. Amateur ballerina Xenia Karolina had been in prison in Russia for over a year after giving a £40 donation to a charity supporting Ukraine. It's understood Miss Karolina left from Abu Dhabi to the US on a plane this morning. Andrew Tate has been accused of holding a gun to a woman's face before saying, "You're going to do as I say or there'll be hell to pay." That's according to court documents. The documents from the case submitted to the UK's High Court by 4 women who allege Tate used sexual violence against them have surfaced today. One of the claimants alleges that the former professional kickboxer grabbed her by the throat on a number of occasions in 2015, had assaulted her with a belt and had pointed a gun at her face. And a photo of the King and Queen during their secret meeting with the Pope on their Italian state visit has been released. Buckingham Palace said King Charles and Queen Camilla were delighted to meet the pontiff in a private audience at the Vatican yesterday. It's understood the visit was only confirmed at the last minute and was subject to the Pope's health as he recuperates after hospital treatment for double pneumonia. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to Tom and Emily.
OK, 12:08. Welcome back to Good Afternoon Britain. Now we're going to head back to that breaking news from the last hour. Yes, Home Office sources have told GB News that the government is now considering holding more than the initial 5 grooming gang local inquiries they said they were going to. And this follows quite a bit of backlash to those plans from the public.
Yes, the government previously refused to hold a national inquiry, of course, instead opting for this hub-and-spoke localised approach. But what's going on now?
What is going on? Our national reporter Charlie Peters can hopefully shed some light on all this. I say hopefully because things seem to be changing by the minute. I mean, Jess Phillips the other day, Tuesday it was, seemed to very much water down the plans. Now Yvette Cooper's insisting they haven't. What's the truth?
Well, the Conservatives have said that they've watered them down, and the government have been resisting that for 2 days now, saying we absolutely haven't. In January, they committed to 5 local inquiries. As Tom said, a hub-and-spoke model. A framework, they said, would be developed by a barrister called Tom Crowther. He was the KC who ran the Telford inquiry. However, he said last week that he had had no involvement whatsoever in the developing of that framework. And we also noticed in the last few weeks that the government had stopped saying 5 inquiries and had started saying further inquiries. So on Tuesday, the Safeguarding Minister then said instead that there would be a flexible approach. That £5 million fund was retained, but they dropped the commitment to 5. That has led to a significant backlash. The Conservatives, as you say, said they were watering down those commitments. A lot of survivors and campaigners around the country speaking to GB News expressing their concern. Oldham will still go ahead, and as we understand, meetings have taken place this week between Tom Crowther and local officials in the town. But today, they're now saying, 2 days on from this long-running furore, that they are going to have perhaps more than 5 inquiries. That's what Home Office sources are telling GB News this morning, although they won't be drawn into saying where those locations might be. Last night, the Times newspaper said that Dewsbury, Oxford and Bradford were areas where negotiations were ongoing. But I understand that isn't what is recognised inside the Home Office at the moment. So we're uncertain which local authorities have been approached for more conversations on this issue. And what's more, this statement today, this change possibly coming from these Home Office sources, comes after a serious negative reaction from Labour MPs yesterday. We've been told that MPs were being besieged by their constituents on this issue. They felt as though this left an open door for Reform UK in many areas who were frustrated by this. There are over 50 different towns and areas that have had this pattern of abuse that we've compiled in our own analysis, and a lot of those areas, as you can understand, want to dive into some further investigation to work out if all the lessons have been learnt, if all the justice has been delivered. One MP in a private WhatsApp group yesterday with Home Office aides is reported to have said, "So Trevor Phillips was right," after the former chair of the Equalities and Human Rights Commission yesterday said that Labour was abandoning its plans to launch into these grooming gang inquiries. It's quite a row, and we don't really know what the government position is.
Now, when you say the government is approaching various councils to try and get them to agree, this is ultimately the model. The local authority has to agree to hold such an inquiry for it to go ahead. It's easy to see how some critics can point to the fact that there will be many local authorities in this country who do not want to investigate themselves. There'll be people still serving on local authorities who were there at the time of some of the most heinous cases of grooming and cover-up. I mean, is this a legitimate model, frankly, if the people have to agree to investigate themselves?
You're absolutely right, Tom, because every single time there has been a local inquiry, and that's all we've had so far in the grooming gang scandal, those authorities have resisted it severely. In Rotherham 10 years ago, they said that reporting on the issue were lies of the Murdoch press. That was a public statement being given by a local authority, which we now know is one of the worst areas for child sexual abuse at the time, with decades of thousands of survivors being affected by abuse that was covered up and ignored. So if that was the approach from one authority then, how can we guarantee that more will agree to those inquiries? And frankly, three months on, Tom, since they said there would be 5, it appears that no one has agreed or come forward for this opt-in approach. And so it was unsurprising, perhaps, that the Safeguarding Minister, Jess Phillips, said that they had expanded what that £5 million fund would go to following feedback from local authorities. That will include more funding for therapeutic measures. That will include victims panels. They've also said they're going to double the funding the Home Office gives to adult survivors of child sexual exploitation. And they have said that inquiries will still go ahead, and Home Office sources are saying there will be more than 5. There could be more than 5. But when it comes to locations, it's still not clear. And just one more point on the locations. In the independent inquiry into child sexual abuse, which the government say counts as a grooming gangs inquiry, they looked at 6 areas where that pattern of abuse did not exist. Will the government agree to have grooming gang inquiries where there haven't been these prosecutions, or will they go to Bradford? Will they go to Birmingham, where Jess Phillips's constituency is? Will they go to Dewsbury? Will they go to Oxford? Will they go to Newcastle? Will they go to Huddersfield? Will they go to Kirklees? Will they go to all the areas where we've had these prosecutions, or will they go to Warwickshire?
Sounds unlikely at this stage, with only £5 million going around, if it's going to be spent on all of these other things, as well as potential inquiries. Thank you very much, Charlie. Keep an eye on everything for us, won't you? Let us know if we get a little more clarity. But yes, in other news, the government is announcing, well, they're pledging that thousands of bobbies will return back on the beat as part of their plans to tackle the shoplifting crisis, for one.
Yes, the Home Office seems to be very busy today. It's all part of the government's neighbourhood policing guarantee, which will see 13,000 named local officers by 2029.
Well, GBNews spoke to the Mayor of Greater Manchester about this earlier on.
It has been a long time coming, but we've worked hard for this day, and this is a proud day for us because the government is saying to the country, look at what's happened in Greater Manchester. This is a different police force than the one we had a few years ago, where they are proactively policing the communities of Greater Manchester. They are making a real change, as we've seen in Bury this morning, with a huge surge of officers into Bury as part of Operation Avro. This is a different Greater Manchester Police, built on the strong foundations of neighbourhood policing, and we're very proud of them.
Well, it all comes as Greater Manchester Police are welcoming the government's pledge for stronger and safer streets. So let's speak to our reporter, Sophie Reaper, for more on this. Sophie, what will this mean for communities?
I think it'll mean everything to communities, Tom, here in Greater Manchester and all over the UK. Trust has obviously deteriorated in the police in recent years, so having more bobbies on the beats, having police be more visible, that is crucial to their work that they're doing. Of course, we heard Greater Manchester's Mayor Andy Burnham speaking there, and you may have heard him mention Operation Avro. That was launched here in Greater Manchester back in 2021, and it's all about cracking down on crime within our communities. And literally in the last couple of minutes, we went out with Operation Avro this morning to get a flavour of what it is they're doing, carrying out warrants, being present on the streets. And literally in the last couple of minutes, I've had an email from them where they've told me that so far here in Bury this morning, they've made 14 arrests, seized 6 weapons, and also seized £5,000 in cash. So clearly, Operation Avro is having an impact. But nationwide, we're going to be seeing around 13,000 more bobbies on the beats. That's an increase of over 50%. And clearly, it is having an impact because we've also learned this morning that crime in Greater Manchester as a whole is down by 7.2%. That's 25,000 less crimes carried out in this city region. Now, after going out with Operation Avro this morning, we got the chance to catch up with the Chief Constable of Greater Manchester Police, Stephen Watson. This is what he had to tell us. Do you think that people feel safer? They might be safer, but do you think they feel safer?
No, I don't think they feel safer, and I think that it's a combination, frankly, of perception as well as many other things. So, candidly, crime is actually falling, but you wouldn't think so if you were downloading your news through social media. It's about a failure to do the basics, and sometimes the basics are no more complex. Then you pick up the phone quickly, you get to people quickly, you make accurate records, you turn up looking like you could pull the skin off a rice pudding, you investigate crime, and you arrest bad people.
Now, I was actually surprised to hear Stephen admit that he thinks people, as it stands, don't feel safer. They might be safer, but they don't necessarily feel it. And that is, of course, because over the years, trust in police has waned. But I think they're hoping with this government announcement today on the neighbourhood policing guarantee that by seeing more police officers, by increasing visibility, as he said, by doing those small things, that gradually that trust in police will increase as people see more bobbies on the beats and they just start to feel perhaps that not just here in Greater Manchester but nationwide that faith in the police has been restored.
Sophie Reaper there in Manchester reporting on this announcement from the government.
I have to say I was looking for a policeman behind Sophie. I haven't been able to see one yet, but perhaps they'll be coming on in a little while.
I mean, they put these statistics out there that crime is down by 7% in Greater Manchester, and I do wonder which crimes, because I, for one, and I'm not in Manchester, but the amount of anecdotal evidence of just blatant robberies, shoplifting, antisocial behaviour, all of these crimes, I don't know. I don't see it going down myself, but...
Well, you can see the government feels like it's going up because there are all these announcements on the new ASBO-type thing that's being introduced and these new PCSOs and a visible police presence. I wonder, I mean, there's always lies, damned lies and statistics.
Yeah.
I'm sure the statistics are correct, but I wonder if there's...
Fraud's down.
Yeah, online fraud is down, meanwhile shoplifting massively up, perhaps.
Yes,
who knows?
yes. And also some people don't bother reporting crime.
Yeah.
Right, Hamas is using the European Convention of Human Rights to challenge its prescription as a terrorist organisation in this country, claiming it is a liberation and resistance movement and is not a threat to the United Kingdom or its citizens.
Work that out. Of course, there are a couple of Brits that were taken hostage by Hamas. But British lawyers acting for this group claim that Hamas's prescription as a terrorist organisation breaches their supporters' human rights under the ECHR by unlawfully restricting their freedom of speech.
I mean, it's hard to believe, isn't it? Let's discuss this further with solicitor and journalist Joshua Rosenberg. Joshua, thank you very much indeed. I was gobsmacked when I saw this on social media, the announcement from this apparently niche immigration and nationality law firm who have chosen to represent Hamas. What are your thoughts?
On the human rights point, it is showing contempt for the Human Rights Convention, really, isn't it? Everybody knows that freedom of expression is not unlimited. You only have to look at Article 10 of the Human Rights Convention, which says that the right to freedom of expression is subject to restrictions and penalties that are prescribed by law, necessary in a democratic society in the interests of national security. In other words, free speech is not absolute, and a country like the United Kingdom, a member of the Council of Europe, signed up to the convention, is fully entitled to ban an organisation, as it did with Hamas, in the interests of national security. As far as the law firm is concerned, I think it's in a very interesting position, isn't it? It's only a one-man band, if I can put it like that. It's only a sole solicitor who's instructed 2 barristers. But these lawyers have obviously got to think very carefully about the Terrorism Act 2000 and whether they are falling foul of it. I'm sure they would deny it. I'm sure they wouldn't intend to. But it's an offence to invite support for a proscribed organisation like Hamas. It's even an offence to express an opinion or belief that's supportive of a banned organisation if you're reckless as to whether somebody who is listening to you is going to be encouraged to support the organisation. Now, these lawyers, when they published a document, a lengthy document in support of their application to the Home Secretary, they put it behind not a paywall, but you had to sign a disclaimer.
Yes.
Which says, by entering this website, you acknowledge none of the contents can be understood as supporting or expressing support for a prescribed terrorist organisation under the Terrorism Act. So they're very well aware that they're skating on thin ice if anybody is encouraged to support Hamas, not just by this website, but because of what they've posted on social media as well.
Joshua, in your legal experience, could there be, in a strange sort of world where this case actually wins, were they to be successful in their claim that people's human rights have been restricted, the freedom of speech has been restricted because people can't openly support Hamas in this country, could that then be a knock-on effect to other terror groups? I mean, are my human rights restricted if I can't support ISIS, if I can't support Al-Qaeda? I mean, surely it's exactly the same argument.
Yes, it is. And you shouldn't think for a moment that this case is going to succeed. This is not a legal case in the courts, at least at this stage. This is an application to the Home Secretary, who's got 90 days to consider it. It's only after the Home Secretary turns it down, as I'm confident she will, that they can go to a special court, an organisation, a court that deals with terrorist organisations and has specialist expertise to deal with applications to de-proscribe, to unban a terrorist organisation, and then it can go higher up the courts. That will take years. I don't think there's any risk of Hamas being unbanned in the short term, or if at all, but you're right that if Hamas was to be free to behave as it has done and to spread what the UK government has described as the actions of a militant Islamist movement, well, yes, other organisations would be next in line.
Says it's not terrorists. They do put out a lot of video and picture that does sort of wave the red flag, screaming, look at me, I'm a terrorist. But Joshua Rosenberg, thanks so much for talking through this bizarre case, this bizarre issue. We'll be following it, of course, as it develops.
Yes, it's nice, isn't it, Britain in 2025, that we have a law firm acting on behalf of a prescribed terrorist group, but there we are. GBNews has approached the Home Office for a response, but a spokesperson said they would not comment on prescription matters.
Okay. Well, up next, we're going to take a look at Trump's trade war as we ask whether the ongoing tariff battle could really help America's economy, and has Donald ducked? Well, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. See you in a moment.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
If you've read Spare, you'll know that Prince Harry's very open, isn't he, about his drug taking in the past. So it's going to be interesting to see if he was honest in his visa application.
Well, we're absolutely waiting for it. Yes, he admitted he took cannabis, cocaine and magic mushrooms, as we know in Spare, and also the Netflix series. He said that. There's been so much talk about it, and obviously Judge Carl Nichols originally said he refused to release any footage, saying that he basically because of Prince Harry's privacy. But as we know, Trump, border security and application of rule is one of his priorities. And I do see Harry as a pawn, really, for Trump and collateral. So everyone's waiting to see what happens. Tuesday is the day, D-Day. We don't know whether Prince Harry is quaking in his boots. But, he quit being a working royal. Well, did he get preferential treatment? We don't know. There is possible misconduct. Apparently, DHS says that actually releasing the paperwork won't shed any light onto how things work. But there are thoughts as well that he could have entered on a special visa. Now, this is an A1 visa that deals with immigration paperwork. And it's a special kind of visa for heads of states and royal people. So Prince Harry could have got through on that, but we're waiting to hear. It's D-Day tomorrow.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 27 minutes past midday. Now, China, or if you're Donald Trump, you pronounce it China, has accused the United States of acting out of selfish interests after Donald Trump raised tariffs on Chinese goods to 125%.
Yes, that's a big tariff. However, markets elsewhere in the world have rebounded quite dramatically, actually, after the American president chose to pause tariffs he'd imposed on dozens of other countries. The FTSE 100 has surged by 6%. That was when it opened this morning.
Well, let's debate this now. What actually does this all mean? Are the markets all happy again, or is there more turbulent water ahead? We're joined by the economist and fellow at the Centre for Brexit Policy, Catherine McBride, and the former Financial Times journalist and author, Alan Friedman. OK, Catherine, we're going to start with you. Donald Trump has U-turned on a lot of his tariff agenda.
Actually, I don't think he's U-turned at all. I think it's he's still got 10% tariffs on everyone, which is 10% more than he had last week. He's still got the 25% tariffs on cars, and he's still got the 25% tariffs on steel and aluminium. They all came in several weeks ago, but no one seemed to notice them. From a UK perspective, those two are hitting our exports to the US more than anything else. That'll be our biggest problems because the aluminium tariffs catch aircraft parts to the tune of $2.3 billion US dollars of aircraft parts were exported from the UK to the US last year. And they're our biggest market for cars. They take about 27% of our car exports. The good news about the cars is we tend to export very expensive cars to the US so that people are not buying them on price. So hopefully the sort of people that want to buy a Rolls-Royce or an Aston Martin can continue to buy them with the
Okay,
tariff
Catherine, I'm just going to
increase.
bring in Alan because unfortunately we don't have a lot of time.
Yeah, I know
Alan, the Trump administration, they say 75 countries have come looking for trade deals and potentially reducing their tariffs. Can this all be seen as a success, Alan?
No, this is what happened last night is the American equivalent of Liz Truss lettuce. We are talking about a U-turn in which Trump was saying with all his people until last night, until yesterday, we're going to keep these tariffs on. And as my previous speaker said, what I think is happening, if you're interested as a journalist, is that we saw the initial euphoria yesterday that he had caused a 90-day pause and stopped the worst of his tariffs. They were going to charge Switzerland 31% for chocolate, and crazy stuff. And he brought it down to a 10% level, which is still going to do damage to the UK economy because the damage that's done will be less, but it'll still be in the billions of pounds. And you're still talking about Ford plants. You're talking about Jaguar and Land Rover having ceased their shipments to the United States from the UK right now. You're talking about dislocation of workers and of plants and eventually of a lower economic performance in the UK and everywhere else, even with 10% tariffs for 3 months. And you're going to get a shallow recession in the United States anyway. So world growth is going to slow down. Yeah. And what's really happening in the market is the futures right now, with just an hour or two to opening New York trading, are indicating another drop of 200 or 300 points and 2 or 3% in the U.S. market. And Britain will follow that later at the end of your trading day. So it's going to be a lot of swings and roundabouts, a lot of Russian roulette and more uncertainty. The worst may seem over, but you better still keep your seatbelts tight.
OK, well, Alan and Catherine, I'm so sorry. We're going to have to end it a little bit early. We've got some news to go to, but thank you to you both for joining us and talking through that issue there. We're going to be back with you here on Good Afternoon Britain after your very latest news headlines.
Good afternoon. Your headlines at 12:31. Global markets have bounced back following President Trump's tariff reversal, with the UK's FTSE 100 soaring by more than 6% on opening. Downing Street says the UK will coolly and calmly continue its negotiations after Donald Trump paused his so-called reciprocal tariffs on most of America's trading partners. The 90-day pause on higher tariffs brings almost all nations down to the minimum levy of 10%. It opens a window to strike new trade deals, with most countries invited to the negotiating table. For China, however, the US president raised the levies to 125%, citing a lack of respect from Beijing. China has hit back, slapping retaliatory tariffs of 84% on all US imports, deepening the trade war between the two nations. Now, Home Office sources have told GB News that the government are now considering more than 5 grooming gang local inquiries. It comes after Safeguarding Minister Jess Phillips said last night they will not hesitate to go further, despite accusations the plans were being watered down. It follows the government's refusal to hold a national inquiry, instead opting for a more localised approach. Now, thousands of police officers could return to our streets as part of Labour's plans to tackle the country's shoplifting crisis. The Prime Minister is today expected to announce that police forces will have dedicated teams of officers focused on patrolling town centres at peak times. This is all part of the government's neighbourhood policing guarantee, which will see 13,000 named local officers by 2029. Sir Keir is expected to stay visible. Policing has fallen dramatically in recent years, with 90% of crime left unsolved. In other news, a US citizen serving a 12-year prison sentence in Russia has been released in a prisoner swap between Moscow and Washington. Amateur ballerina Xenia Karolina has been in prison in Russia for over a year after giving a £40 donation to a charity supporting Ukraine. It's understood Miss Karolina left for the US on a plane from Abu Dhabi this morning. Andrew Tate has been accused of holding a gun to a woman's face before saying, "You're going to do as I say or there'll be hell to pay." That's according to court documents. Documents from the case submitted to the UK's High Court by 4 women who allege Tate used sexual violence against them surfaced today. One of the claimants alleges the former professional kickboxer grabbed her by the throat on a number of occasions in 2015, had assaulted her with a belt and had pointed a gun at her face. And a photo of the King and Queen during their secret meeting with the Pope on their Italian state visit has been released today. Buckingham Palace said King Charles and Queen Camilla were delighted to meet the pontiff in a private audience at the Vatican yesterday. It's understood the visit was only confirmed at the last minute and was subject to the Pope's health as he recuperates after hospital treatment for double pneumonia. Those are the latest GB News headlines. More in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
And here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.2928 and €1.1670. The price of gold is £2,414 and 28 pence per ounce. And the FTSE 100's at 8,021 points.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Good afternoon, Britain. At 36 minutes past 12, we're going straight to Ravenna, live in Italy, where the King and Queen will shortly arrive to mark the 80th anniversary of the liberation of the province.
Well, our royal correspondent Cameron Walker is there to run us through all of the details. So, Cameron, tell us what's happening today, then.
Well, good afternoon, Emily and Tom. I was in shock when I arrived here in Ravenna just a couple of hours ago because many Italians, and I'm talking literally hundreds, have been queuing for hours and hours and hours behind barriers in order to get a glimpse of the King and Queen. It's like nothing we saw in Rome. In fact, I can only really compare it to what you see on the Mall or in a British town when the King and Queen come to visit there. So there clearly is a huge sense of pride for the royal family here in Italy, and a sense of respect and love for the British royal family, particularly King Charles and Queen Camilla. We were speaking to some ultra-royal fans a little bit earlier on who are hoping to give the King and Queen some memorabilia. One woman had a China teacup all the way from 1969, which is the year that Charles was invested as Prince of Wales. Another man had 2 cards that he had received from Buckingham Palace because he had wrote to the King following the death of his mother, Queen Elizabeth II, and to congratulate the King and Queen on their coronation. And he was lucky enough to get a reply on both those occasions. So he's hoping to show the King and Queen those cards from his private secretaries inside Buckingham Palace. Lots of people will have been waving Union flags. There's also lots of people with Italian flags as well. But this, of course, as we've been saying all week, really, soft diplomacy in action. It's that kind of soft power that the King and Queen musters, strengthening relations between Italy and the United Kingdom. We are expecting their arrival to be in the next couple of moments. I can hear a police siren. Whether or not that's just a normal police siren or a special convoy is yet to be seen. But of course, it was a bit of a shock because we got the new photograph this morning of them meeting the Pope. Their Majesty's meeting the Pope yesterday, which we were always told was not in the plans. But clearly, it is in the plans because we've got a photo.
Yes, so that was a surprise. Do you think that it had always been a sort of suggestion that without the bells and the whistles, just a more private, less public and perhaps more muted meeting with the Pope, who, of course, has spent a month in hospital in recent weeks? Do you think that was always something that the King really wanted to make sure could happen?
I think it probably was, Tom, because, of course, this originally was going to be a state visit to the Holy See, as well as a separate state visit to Italy. But as you said, because the Pope spent more than a month in hospital battling double pneumonia, the Vatican asked Buckingham Palace to postpone. We were always told that there are no plans for the King and Queen to meet with the Pope when they were in Italy. But what happened was that morning, the Pope felt well enough that he could meet with the King and Queen for a short period of time, as you say, for a private meeting. So the King and Queen found time in their diary yesterday afternoon to come back to where they're staying at the UK ambassador's residence, get changed into black, which is, of course, is tradition when you are meeting the Pope, and then go to the Vatican in a very secret convoy. And then it was leaked to the Italian media. And we found out last night. I was actually in the Quirinale Palace covering the state banquet last night, smelling the beautiful, glorious food, which I was not allowed to eat, when I found out that the Pope had visited the King this afternoon, when everybody was in their black ties and splendour. But yes, a bit of a shock. But yes, we got the photograph this morning, and it looks like the King and Queen really enjoyed the visit. And we understand that the Pope wished the King well with his own cancer diagnosis. And of course, and cancer treatments, and the King and Queen obviously wished the Pope well with his continued recovery. Now, I can see from my position, I don't think you can see on your screens, but there is a convoy coming into view. So in the next few seconds, we should see the King and Queen arrive in Ravenna. The shot you are looking at, this is the San Francesco Piazza in central Ravenna. It is indeed the King and Queen. So in the next few seconds, they will be sweeping into view here. This morning, they planted a tree in the UK ambassador's garden in Rome. You can hear the cheers from the crowd as the convoy sweeps into view from where I am standing. Hopefully, in the next few seconds, we'll be able to get you a shot of that. If you're listening on the radio, it is a humongous convoy of a lot of police motor cars. Here we are, the Royal Standard on top of the bonnet. Yes. You should just about be able to see the royal car any moment now. Cheers from the crowds as the King and Queen step out of their royal car. And cheers from the Italian public for His Majesty King Charles III and Queen Camilla. And they are going over to meet members of the public who, as I said, have been queuing from at least 7 o'clock this morning. It is now 2 o'clock, almost, well, 20 to 2 local time here in Italy. This beautiful sunshine is shining down on everybody. It's incredibly warm weather here in Rome. And you can just see, I think, the elation from the crowds. They are really enjoying meeting them. This special moment, having queued for hours to shake the King's hand or the Queen's hand. The Queen looks like she's being asked for a lot of selfies, but I don't think she is obliging at this point. The King a little bit further down. So the King is currently at those absolute super royal fans who I was speaking to you about earlier, who had all the memorabilia and who have been collecting royal memorabilia for a number of years. And some, of course, as I said, have got cards from Buckingham Palace, having spoken to, having written to Buckingham Palace following the death of Queen Elizabeth II and indeed for the coronation. But I think this is what the royal family, I think, is all about, isn't it? It's because these sort of memories is going to stay with these Italians for a generation. That's what the UK ambassador told us a few days ago. And it's that kind of soft power which then opens the door to these diplomatic meetings. And in fact, speaking of opening the door to diplomatic and political meetings, I can clock in my line of sight David Lammy, the Foreign Secretary, who is just a couple of metres behind Queen Camilla. He doesn't seem to be the centre of attention, as you can probably imagine. Here, it is all about the King and Queen, but of course, that does open up David Lammy and his Italian counterpart to have these political meetings.
Well, fantastic stuff. What a throng, what a passionate throng of people the King has seemingly sort of thrown himself into. Very passionate people, the Italians. So it's very, very good to see. Cameron Walker, we'll catch up with you a little bit later in the programme, but thank you for bringing us those live images there in Ravenna.
Very nice indeed. Well, we'll bring you updates, of course, on their state visit. It is day 4, the final day of the visit. But we're going to move on because the asylum system is reportedly ruining social cohesion in Glasgow. Bit of a gear change here. As the council's homelessness convener is warning pressure on the city has become utterly untenable.
Well, figures also show that Glasgow is the largest dispersal area for asylum seekers outside of London.
Well, let's get more on the situation with our reporter Tony Maguire. He joins us live from Glasgow. Tony, I understand a huge amount of pressure on the local authorities in Glasgow and also on the population, including the homeless.
Yeah, good afternoon. Now, certainly that seems to be the key message under all of this, is that, you know, there's warnings that social cohesion is kind of on the rocks here in Glasgow. Now, Glasgow, as you said, is the second largest dispersal city in the UK after London, and the result of that is huge pressure, especially on our homeless services. Now, I'm joined by Jack Geddes, who is the fundraising and marketing manager at the Glasgow City Mission. Jack, thank you for joining with us. Give us a sense of the problems that the homeless services are facing here in Glasgow.
Yeah, well, there's obviously increased demand. We see a lot more people coming through our doors and have seen that in the last couple of years. So that puts extra pressure on what we serve up. So we do a cooked, fresh lunch and dinner every weekday. And typically we would have seen about 60 people at lunch previously, and maybe 80 to 90 at dinner. It's now 100 and 120.
And is that, as part of that, as I said, what the City Council is talking about, is part of the pressure from an increased number of asylum seekers coming to Glasgow? And, you know, Glasgow is known to be a friendly city and welcoming, and is that part of the story?
Yes, it's certainly part of the story. We're dealing with a lot of folks who have right to remain, so they are legally here, and they are just trying to find their way into the system or through the system. So we help them as best we can. Almost on a weekly basis, we're helping people, we support people into accommodation as it becomes available. But you may be aware that we have a housing crisis in Scotland, a lack of social housing. So it's not just one issue, it's a combination of issues.
Certainly, obviously, the work being done here and at many other homeless charities in Scotland are trying to do their part to kind of alleviate this crisis, but that housing crisis is really at the core of so many of these problems.
Yeah, absolutely. Tony Maguire, thank you so much for bringing us that report from Glasgow. I mean, the Scottish National Party were all, you know, refugees welcome, and then, you know, it hits the local authorities. Oh, gosh, what on earth are we going to do?
Well, it's half one and 6 of another, isn't it? Yeah. Well, if you want to find somewhere that perhaps has fewer migrants per person than Glasgow, you might want to travel to some of those top European holiday destinations. Here's your travel weather.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun.
Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Heavy showers and thunderstorms impacting Portugal and southwestern parts of Spain, but elsewhere across Europe we are going to see improving temperatures through the week. Initially some heavy showers affecting Tenerife and Madeira, eventually moving into parts of Portugal and Spain, but as we head our way further east, largely settled, lots of sunny spells and improving temperatures too, starting off in the mid-teens but increasing through the course of the week. And there'll be plenty of sunshine as we head into next week, the odd shower still affecting Tenerife, and that's where we'll see the best of the temperatures too.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Right, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Coming up, have you seen this? The Prince of Wales, his latest venture is football punditry, and he turns out he's quite good at it. We'll reveal all next.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. It's quite a cloudy start across the southeastern half of the UK, but this cloud should eventually clear towards coastal areas, leaving a fine and dry day for many. Lots of warm sunshine, but we could still see some cloud lingering on around the coasts of the southeast, where we see a bit more of an easterly flow. But across more northern areas, a northwesterly wind direction, really clearing away that cloud, particularly across eastern parts of Scotland, northeastern England, where they've seen quite cloudy days over the last couple of days. But now there's going to be plenty more warm sunshine to come, so a much better day on offer. Though across coasts of East Anglia, parts of Kent, once again another cloudy day ahead and feeling quite cool here. Also a fair amount of cloud across the very far north of Scotland, but many areas seeing a warm day, plenty of wall-to-wall sunshine and feeling warm in that sunshine as well. Now, to end the day across Scotland, still plenty of cloud pushing in to the very far north, so not quite as much of a nice end to the day across Shetland and Orkney, but a lot of Scotland remaining largely dry. Similar across Northern Ireland, a few more clearer skies to end the day here, and much clearer across northern parts of England, parts of Wales and southern parts of England too. A clear end to the night, but that does mean temperatures are soon going to dip away. So it's going to be fairly chilly as we head into the overnight period. Once again, a chance of some rural frost, but it's not going to be turning quite as cold as it has done over recent nights, and we're likely to see some mist and fog patches towards dawn too. And once again, further areas of cloud pushing into the very far north of Scotland. This might bring some drizzle across Shetland by the time we reach the morning, but lows widely around 4 to 5 degrees Celsius, so not quite turning as cold as it has done over previous mornings. So it's going to be quite a bright start, likely seeing some mist and fog in places. This clearing quite quickly through the morning, leaving once again another fine and dry end to the day. Plenty of sunshine and feeling much warmer too. Still some cloud lingering on across the far north of Scotland. Still some drizzle here, but otherwise a fine day ahead. Highs of 21 to 22 Celsius.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Good afternoon, Britain, at 10 to 3. No, it's not. It's 10 to 1. There we go. But let's talk about the
racing
Royals,
ahead of time today.
I don't know. But the Prince William has tried his hand at football punditry at last night's Champions League quarter-final.
He has indeed. Here were some of his thoughts alongside regular pundits Rio Ferdinand and Ali McCoist.
Are you as nervous as we are? I am, Ali. I'm pretty terrified. It's been a while coming, this, so it's a big game. 43 years since the last time this happened, a big European night for Villa. So yeah, I'm nervous, but I'm confident, but also excited by the whole prospect.
Well, I was going to say I did a little bit of homework. I think you were born just about a month, maybe a month after the victory in Rotterdam. That's got to be a good omen.
Well, I hope so. We'll see. I'm wearing all my lucky clothes and bits and pieces and done on my routine, so I'm hoping that it's going to bring some luck tonight.
Do you know, Tom, a lot of people are tweeting. This is blown up online. People are saying, is it just me or is Prince William a better pundit than half the people they get on these days? Aaron Bastani says Prince William is a better pundit than 3 in 4 of the people on Match of the Day. He sounds and looks like a guy with a column at The Athletic.
Wow. Well, I heard Match of the Day is looking for a new permanent presenter, isn't it?
Well, maybe it could be Prince William if he's allowed to do such things. Or would that be inappropriate for a future monarch, perhaps?
Perhaps it would be. But we hear that Prince George was also in attendance of the game in Paris, supporting Aston Villa against PSG.
Oh, no, of course it's not a school night. It's the Easter holidays.
No, there you go. So it's all above board. But who knew that the Prince of Wales was such a football fanatic? Let's get some more with the royal broadcaster, Helena Chard. Helena, were you surprised to see such football fluency from the future king?
I am not surprised at all. I mean, he is passionate. He's passionate in anything he loves. He really is. He's tenacious. He knows all the intricacies. If you think about his charities, Homewards, etc., it's a similar thing. He really, really gives a lot of time and attention to everything. So to see him being so articulate, knowledgeable, thoughtful, and people saying how cool, you know, even the younger generation now looking at him as this really cool guy is brilliant.
Helena, what do you make of the slight controversy? I think this might be a bit unfair, but he hugged some of the players in the tunnel. Is that something a future king should be doing? Is that too close?
I don't know. Do you know what? I just think he's been authentic. He's been relaxed. It's very. I just think he's connecting with people. I think it's absolutely fine. I really do. He was in the grounds. He's passionate with the. I just see that it's the ripple effect. That the fact that he's so passionate and youngsters can see this and see that, the future king is just this relatable, normal guy is brilliant and interesting, like father, like son. There's King Charles giving his speech in Parliament very eloquently. There's Prince William, being the pundit. Again, equally as eloquent and intelligent.
Charles talking about compost, climate change and archaeology, and Prince William, his son, talking about the football. Why not? Why not?
It's
Helena Charles, thank you very much indeed.
So fun, it's fun.
Thank you very much. Well, there you go.
Well, there we go. Who knew? Well, I suppose he is president of the Football Association still. But this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Plenty more to come. Indeed, breaking news from the government. Stay tuned to find what it is.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. It's quite a cloudy start across the southeastern half of the UK, but this cloud should eventually clear towards coastal areas, leaving a fine and dry day for many. Lots of warm sunshine, but we could still see some cloud lingering on around the coasts of the southeast, where we see a bit more of an easterly flow. But across more northern areas, a northwesterly wind direction, really clearing away that cloud, particularly across eastern parts of Scotland, northeastern England, where they've seen quite cloudy days over the last couple of days. But now there's going to be plenty more warm sunshine to come, so a much better day on offer. Though across coasts of East Anglia, parts of Kent, once again another cloudy day ahead and feeling quite cool here. Also a fair amount of cloud across the very far north of Scotland, but many areas seeing a warm day, plenty of wall-to-wall sunshine and feeling warm in that sunshine as well. Now, to end the day across Scotland, still plenty of cloud pushing in to the very far north, so not quite as much of a nice end to the day across Shetland and Orkney, but a lot of Scotland remaining largely dry. Similar across Northern Ireland, a few more clearer skies to end the day here, and much clearer across northern parts of England, parts of Wales and southern parts of England too. A clear end to the night, but that does mean temperatures are soon going to dip away. So it is going to be fairly chilly as we head into the overnight period. Once again, a chance of some rural frost, but it's not going to be turning quite as cold as it has done over recent nights, and we're likely to see some mist and fog patches towards dawn too. And once again, further areas of cloud pushing into the very far north of Scotland. This might bring some drizzle across Shetland by the time we reach the morning, but lows widely around 4 to 5 degrees Celsius, so not quite turning as cold as it has done over previous mornings. So it's going to be quite a bright start, likely seeing some mist and fog in places. This clearing quite quickly through the morning, leaving once again another fine and dry end to the day. Plenty of sunshine and feeling much warmer too. Still some cloud lingering on across the far north of Scotland. Still some drizzle here, but otherwise a fine day ahead. Highs of 21 to 22 Celsius.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be driving away with this brand new Elnag Baron 560 motorhome. It comfortably sleeps 4, comes with sky roof, integrated kitchen and bathroom, and is worth over £67,000. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that wherever this motorhome takes you, it takes you there in style. For a chance to win a motorhome and cash, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Now, I'm a bit irritated today. So there's two secret files that have been released, one on Prince Harry and his visa claim and getting citizenship in the USA. And what do we learn from it? Nothing. Nothing, because it's all redacted. And then the biggest one of all, history. So Donald Trump says, yes, we can see the JFK files, we have nothing to hide there, whatever. It's all redacted. There's nothing, we don't learn anything new from this. Now, you've studied, you've been like me, you've been fascinated like this since you were a kid.
Yeah, I have. I don't... I mean, let's be honest. Is there likely to be files somewhere that's actually saying Grassy Knoll and Magic Bullet...
Giving you the truth.
And that it was the mafia and that it was to do with J. Edgar Hoover or anything else? I don't believe all that stuff anyway. I honestly don't.
Well, how do you explain that it wasn't JFK's brain that was in the post-mortem? It was a different brain. His brain was substituted.
You know what? That's the first I've heard of that.
Well, you see, I thought
it was a different brain. How did they know? How do they know it wasn't his brain?
Well, they may have known what his brain was like.
Well, the doctor in Dallas who was there to do the post-mortem because it was his area.
Yes.
Wasn't allowed to do the post-mortem.
That's right, because they wanted to fly him back to Washington, right?
The CIA or the FBI, whatever, took the body away.
Right.
And they had time to do whatever they wanted, and doctor anything the way they wanted. But, I mean, and there definitely were two shooters. There were two shooters involved in this.
I don't believe that.
Because of the magic bullet?
No, the puff of smoke from the grassy knoll.
Maybe I'm being extremely naive, that's how but for everything that I've seen, everything I've read, I think that Lee Harvey Oswald, how about this, actually did it.
What?
And did it alone.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 1 o'clock on Thursday, the 10th of April. I'm Emily Carver.
And I'm Tom Harwood.
Well, Home Office sources have told GB News today that more local inquiries could be launched into the activity of grooming gangs. Yes, after initial backlash to the government's limited plans to their watering down of those 5 promised local inquiries. Charlie Peters will be with us shortly.
Elsewhere, more bobbies on the beat. Well, that's the government's promise today as they commit to putting 13,000 more neighbourhood officers on our streets. But are they all actual police officers, or have they cut some corners? What exactly does this pledge mean?
And stock markets have surged a little this morning following Donald Trump's decision to pause tariffs for 90 days on most countries. China, however, has been hit with a huge 125% tariff as the two economic powers continue to fight it out. What do you make of Trump's shift in tack?
And a London-based law firm is representing Hamas. Yes, they're challenging the Home Secretary to end the ban on the terror group. Well, lawyers are using the ECHR to claim the designation threatens their freedom of speech. Well, there's plenty going on today, but we wanted to bring you a little bit of news that is making Whitehall a little bit convulsed this afternoon. Yes, the government is saying that the cuts to the civil service are starting now.
Yes,
What are
potentially
they?
thousands of jobs cut. Slashed. Is that a good thing? We know just how much Whitehall's ballooned. Just every single year it seems to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger.
Well, the specific news that we're going to bring you is about the Cabinet Office. Yes, there's a number of individuals who have been told that their time is up in that central department in the government. The government, of course, is run out of Whitehall, and the Office of State that perhaps ties everything together is the Cabinet Office.
Right, well, I found the details. Thank you, guys. The Cabinet Office will cut its workforce by almost a third, with 1,200 people made redundant and 900 transferred elsewhere. That's what the government has announced. Cutting the workforce by almost a third.
1/3 of the Cabinet Office gone up in smoke. Is this the new drive for efficiency that everyone wants to see, or will this make government a bit less smooth running, particularly because this is the department that does sort of try and gel everything together? But perhaps they've invested in a lot more AI to make it all better off. That's
or
what the
maybe
Prime
we didn't need
Minister's
these jobs to begin with.
Yeah, is it just the HR department? That's
just the HR department. We have the most HR employees out of any country, right?
Yeah, per
capita.
person, yeah.
And the most
Diversity, inclusion and equality.
There we go, yes, those ones. We have more of them than any other country per capita.
It's a wonder growth at zero, isn't it?
Has it boosted our growth? Don't think so. No offence if you do happen to work in HR, it is very much needed. But do we need so many HR officials?
Right, exactly. I mean, it's sort of there is a correct degree of everything, I suppose. And when your HR department is bigger than your innovation department, that's probably a problem.
And do let us know what you make of what's going on with the grooming gang inquiries. Who do you trust? I mean, Jess Phillips and the Home Secretary Yvette Cooper seem to be speaking or singing from very different hymn sheets, don't they, at the moment? But let's get to the headlines with Sophia.
Good afternoon. Your headlines, it's just gone 1 o'clock. The EU has put retaliatory tariffs against the US on hold after Donald Trump paused tariff hikes. Global markets have bounced back following President Trump's announcement, with the UK's FTSE 100 soaring by more than 6%. The 90-day pause on higher tariffs brings almost all nations down to the minimum levy of 10%. It opens a window to strike new trade deals, with most countries invited to the negotiating table. For China, however, the US president raised the levies to 125%, citing a lack of respect from Beijing. China has hit back, slapping retaliatory tariffs of 84% on all US imports, deepening a trade war between Beijing and Washington. Now, the Cabinet Office is set to cut its staff by more than 2,000 people as a Labour government seeks to shrink the civil service. The department will reduce its staff by almost a third, with 1,200 employees being made redundant, while another 900 will be transferred elsewhere. Along with other reforms, the Cabinet Office says the cuts will save £110 million a year by 2028. Home Office sources have told GB News that the government is now considering more than 5 grooming gang local inquiries. It comes after Safeguarding Minister Jess Phillips said last night that they will not hesitate to go further, despite accusations the plans are being watered down. It follows the government's refusal to hold a national inquiry, instead opting for a more localised approach. Meanwhile, Reform UK leader Nigel Farage has called the government cowardly and suspects there'll be a judicial review.
I thought the announcement that was made by Jess Phillips in the House of Commons right on the eve of recess was one of the most cowardly things I've ever seen. You know, I called for a national inquiry. The government tried to head me off at the pass by saying they were going to do 5. They've scrapped those now. The problem is that any inquiry to work, it has to have statutory powers. Otherwise you can't get these northern councils, these northern police forces before you and held to account. I am told there'll be a development coming on Monday, led by somebody who played a very prominent role in exposing the grooming gangs. That'll be coming on Monday, and I suspect the route we're now going to go down is for a judicial review.
In other news, thousands of police officers could return to our streets as part of Labour's plans to tackle the country's shoplifting crisis. The Prime Minister is today expected to announce that police forces will have dedicated teams of officers focused on patrolling town centres at peak times. This is all part of the government's neighbourhood policing guarantee, which will see 13,000 named local officers by 2029. Sir Keir is expected to say visible policing has fallen dramatically in recent years, with 90% of crime left unsolved. Elsewhere, a US citizen serving a 12-year prison sentence in Russia has been released in a prisoner swap between Moscow and Washington. Amateur ballerina Xenia Karolina had been in a prison in Russia for over a year after giving a £40 donation to a charity supporting Ukraine. It's understood Miss Karolina left for the US on a plane from Abu Dhabi this morning. Now, Andrew Tate has been accused of holding a gun to a woman's face before saying, "You're going to do as I say or there'll be hell to pay." That's according to court documents. The documents from the case, submitted to the UK's High Court by 4 women who alleged Tate used sexual violence against them, surfaced today. One of the claimants alleges the former professional kickboxer grabbed her by the throat on a number of occasions in 2015, had assaulted her with a belt and had pointed a gun at her face. A new at-home saliva test may turn the tide on prostate cancer. That's according to UK scientists. It analyses men's DNA to work out who was born with the greatest risk of developing the disease. Around 12,000 men in the UK die from prostate cancer every year. The new spit test could be used as an additional screening tool, experts say, as it picks up a higher proportion of aggressive cancers than the current tests. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to Tom and Emily.
Good afternoon, Britain. It is 8 minutes past 1. Now, Home Office sources have told GB News today that the government is considering more than 5 grooming gang local inquiries after Jess Phillips said that they will not hesitate to go further.
Well, it all follows the government's refusal to hold a single national inquiry, instead opting for a more localised hub-and-spoke approach.
Hub-and-spoke approach. Our national reporter Charlie Peters can shed some light on all of this. Charlie, where are we with this? Because it doesn't seem awfully clear what exactly the plan is, which areas are going to be affected and what's going on, frankly.
Well, this is what we're seeking some clarity on, is which areas have been selected. We only know so far that Oldham will have a local inquiry, and that was announced before the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, made that intervention in the House on January the 16th, earlier this year, after 2 weeks of public pressure on this crisis. It went quiet for a few months. We kept reporting on this issue, as GB News has consistently for many years, but it came back into the headlines last week when Kimmy Badenoch told GB News that they were going to put forward some amendments to the crime bill, calling again for a national inquiry, and also the man that the government said they'd selected to generate a framework for these hub-and-spoke inquiries, the 5 local ones they'd said they'd committed to. He told the Home Affairs Select Committee that he was not involved, and instead that ministers were now leading that process, not him. And then 2 days ago, we had this announcement in the Commons by the Safeguarding Minister, Jess Phillips, about an hour or so before the end of the Commons for the Easter recess, saying that they're now approaching more flexible attitudes towards dealing with the grooming gang scandal. It won't necessarily mean just inquiries, but also therapeutic care victims panels as well. And that's coming from following feedback with local authorities. So there's no commitment to 5. That was 2 days ago. And now we're being told by Home Office sources that there may be more than 5 grooming gang inquiries, because there was a significant backlash to that announcement 2 days ago. The Conservatives saying that they'd watered down that commitment in January. Of course, they want different action. They want that national statutory public inquiry. But we still don't know where this may happen. A newspaper was reporting last night that Bradford, Dewsbury and Oxford were areas considering this sort of negotiations for inquiries. All of those areas have been part of this pattern of abuse. There have been several convictions in all 3 towns, lots of trafficking between them as well, through multiple reports that we've seen and survivors that we've spoken to. However, government sources are today saying they don't recognise those reports of negotiations taking place, telling me that they don't recognise that that's currently the situation that the government is going through. And what's more, Tom and Emily, is that last night we also learnt that Labour MPs were privately furious with the government about that announcement on Tuesday, saying that they'd been besieged with very angry and negative feedback from their constituents over this change. It seems that many more people that they're speaking to do see it as watering down, but the government insists that is not what they're doing, and they're actually doing more action. Home Secretary Yvette Cooper taking to the airwaves this morning, saying they're going further than they announced in January.
It's so frustrating, isn't it? Because what people want is accountability. They want authorities, social services, police services, of course, the perpetrators of the crimes held accountable. And if the local authorities are sort of marking their own homework, picking and choosing how much they're investigated, or whether they'll just spend the money on therapeutic sessions, is that really what we want from this?
Have we given them a get-out?
Yeah,
Big
is that
questions.
really what... Charlie, we're going to have to leave it there, but we'll speak to you again very shortly, indeed, because...
Yes, we're now joined by the Police and Crime Commissioner for Leicestershire and Rutland, Rupert Matthews. Rupert, this is a huge, huge issue across the country. I just wanted, firstly, your view on where on earth the government is on this. It seems like we get a different sentiment and a different sort of policy each and every day.
Well, they're in an absolute mess, I think, is the first thing. I mean, quite clearly, we should be having a full national inquiry on this. If they are thinking of going down the local route, then I don't think it should be left up to the local authorities either to decide if they're doing one or what the terms of reference are, because in several cases, the finger of blame is pointing at the local authorities, and somebody has got to get a grip on this. The poor girls deserve nothing less.
Yes, I do think it is. It does seem like to be a pretty disastrous situation. We could have the worst of both worlds in some respects if the only local authorities that actually do end up having inquiries are those that have opted in. Those that don't opt in could well be those that have the most to investigate.
Well, that's right. I mean, here in Leicestershire and Rutland, we, of course, take child sexual exploitation very seriously. We haven't got a track record having these sort of rape gangs going on, but even so, I have asked the police here to do a review of past cases, just to see if anything has been missed in the light of what's been discovered since, and to make sure that we haven't been missing tricks, we haven't been abandoning girls that needed us to look after them. And like I say, this is an area that hasn't got a track record of this, so those that do really need to be taking this seriously and looking to see what can be done.
Now, of course, this isn't the only news that we're seeing today. The government is announcing more bobbies on the beat across the country. Do you think you will actually see this in your area?
Well, fingers crossed we'll get something. I think the first thing to say is that the government is talking about 13,000 more officers in neighbourhood roles. If you actually drill down into that, there's only actually 3,000 additional police officers. The rest are going to be other staff or special constables. Now, they do a really valuable job. And of course, here in Leicestershire and Rutland, we're really going to take advantage of them as much as we can. But I think the government is slightly misselling this. They're saying it's 13,000 officers. In fact, it's 3,000 officers plus support staff to help them out.
So when we look at exactly who might be these extra officers, it does seem there's some ambiguity as to whether or not these will actually be police officers or PCSOs, the sort of community support officers. Do you have any more information on that?
We haven't finished doing the sums in our patch. We are going to have a couple of dozen, possibly more, additional police officers here in Leicestershire and Rutland dedicated absolutely to neighbourhood policing. You're quite right to highlight the role of PCSOs. Now, they do a really valuable job out on the streets, and community support officers, in my mind, do the sort of Dixon of Dock Green policing that I think people of my age sort of grew up with and are accustomed to. So they're really important. But, you know, the 13,000 is also going to be including a lot of backroom staff and people that, you know, they're doing the paperwork, but they're not actually on the street. So it's useful, but it's not as great as the government are trying to tell us.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Rupert Matthews, Police and Crime Commissioner for Leicestershire and Rutland, for talking through these two big announcements. Thanks very much indeed for your time. Emily, this is, of course, such a big issue because I think people feel like crime has risen precipitously, sort of year after year after year.
Yeah, but yet we're told by so many of these areas, by these police forces, that no, don't worry, crime is on its way down. But as we were saying earlier, which crimes? Because it feels like the very noticeable crimes that make us feel less safe on the streets, so antisocial behaviour, robberies, shoplifting, violent crime, knife crime, theft, all of these sorts of things that are very in your face do seem to be getting worse, particularly in city centres. But do let us know if that's the case. We're hearing also about rural crime. Yes. We're hearing about tool theft, white van men. I was talking to a chap who was helping me out with something at the house, at the flat, and he was saying, yeah, like all of his friends are terrified that their stuff's going to be nicked out the back of their van. It happens, you know, even in the nice bits of the city.
Yes, I know the Shadow Justice Secretary, Robert Jenrick, made a film with GBNews just going around some of these car boot sales in some parts of the country, looking at just the sort of tools that are being sold there, sort of tool after tool after tool after tool on sort of sheets laid out on the ground. I mean, you'd have to be deeply, deeply gullible to think that at least some of these aren't stolen goods that are then being passed on at low prices.
Oh, absolutely. And if it's not at the car boot sales, it's on Facebook Marketplace or wherever else. But moving on, China has accused the United States of acting out of selfish interests, which China would never do, after Donald Trump raised tariffs on Chinese goods to 125%.
However, markets elsewhere in the world have rebounded slightly after the American president paused tariffs as he imposed on, well, dozens of other countries, with the FTSE FTSE 100 surged by 6% when it opened this morning, although I have to say US futures, we haven't yet seen the US markets open, but they're down slightly today because those tariffs still that 10% minimum across the world.
Yes, if we have time, we'll bring you the opening of the New York Stock Exchange. We've done it the last few days, so why not today as well? But to help us answer all of these questions is economics editor at The Spectator, Michael Simmons. So, Michael, how do you view all of this? So a lot of people saying Trump has U-turned because of pressure within the administration, because of pressure coming from bond yields and also the stock markets. He talked about yippies, didn't he? The yippie reaction as well. Others are saying that, well, things have changed because other countries are coming to him to negotiate free trade deals or better tariffs on the United States. So what do you make of it all?
I think quite simply he's balked at the bond markets. What's kind of been unusual about this sort of economic crisis is normally when investors lose faith in the stock market, they go to like what we call safe haven assets, such as bonds, which is funding government borrowing. And normally what you would expect, therefore, is bond yields to go down and government borrowing becomes cheaper. And some people said that this was actually Trump's plan because this year the US has got to refinance something like $9 trillion worth of debt. But what actually happened was those bond yields went down because investors said, OK, we want out of the stock market, but also we're not going to go into bonds. And quite frankly, I think that scared Trump and the administration, which is why he's, backed down, at least for some countries.
Speculation that Japan in particular, that holds a huge amount of US government debt, but also China, started sort of selling their US Treasury bonds, which then, of course, makes the cost of government debt so much more expensive. I mean, this is the price that any heavily indebted nation has to pay. You're at the whim of those global markets, as Liz Truss found out in the UK. But I think a lot of people thought, well, the behemoth that is the United States, the world's reserve currency, I mean, they can't possibly be Trussified. And yet, perhaps that's what we saw last night.
Yeah, I think that's very possible. I mean, it will be probably months before we know really who the big sellers were. But if you look at, some of the ways that the bond prices moved, it did appear like it was, massive holders, the potentially central bank size holders that were selling. So there's definitely this appears to have been this kind of coordinated effort. And I think the US administration probably just didn't see this coming, which is why they've had this. Well, I would say it's a U-turn. But I think you mentioned the futures for the S&P 500 trending slightly down. I wouldn't be surprised if American markets opened down because of the fact that the tariffs are still there on China and vice versa. Because these are the two largest economies, and whatever the signals of the reprieve are for the rest of the world, the fact that effectively trade between America and China continues to be embargoed is still going to be hugely, I think, inflationary and recessionary. So I wouldn't be surprised, even though Europe and London has rebounded, if we don't see such a rebound in America today.
OK, well, we wait and see till 2:30 to see what happens with those stocks as they open. Michael Simmons, thank you very much indeed, economics editor at The Spectator.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I wonder, there's a lot of gambling still going on because, of course, the UK's tariffs with the United States have not changed a jot. We were on the minimum tariff anyway. It's just the rest of the world has come down to our level. It's still potentially crippling for our pharmaceuticals industry that previously had zero tariffs, lots of other industries for our exporters. I mean, I suppose the bet in the markets now is, will these deals be made? Will tariffs actually be lower with these countries at the end of this?
I mean, it shouldn't be forgotten that Donald Trump has been speaking very fondly of countries who have come to him. The switchboard has been hot in the Oval Office. He says, Japan, South Korea, Australia also, all of these different countries, they're desperate to get a brilliant trade deal with the United States. Could it be that despite all this sort of flip-flopping, you might say, or changes of directions, that things end up in a positive direction for the United States? We shall see. We shall see.
Well, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Up next, we're going to look at why Hamas, the terror group, yes, a lawsuit is being brought against the British government trying to overturn their prescription as a terrorist organisation. That next.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here We do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
A British law firm, a London-based law firm, it's 1:25 by the way in the afternoon if you're wondering, has decided to represent Hamas, and they're using the European Convention of Human Rights to challenge the prescription of this terrorist organisation as a terrorist organisation in the United Kingdom, claiming it is in fact a liberation and resistance movement and is no threat at all to the United Kingdom or its citizens.
And you can tell how liberation-y they are by how many balaclavas they wear as they wave their automatic weapons around the dead hostages that lie at their feet. Well, British lawyers acting for the group also claim that Hamas's prescription as a terrorist organisation breaches their supporters' human rights. Yes, under the ECHR by unlawfully restricting that freedom of speech.
Right, it's an advert to get rid of the ACHR, isn't it? So should Hamas be taken off the list of prescribed terror groups in the United Kingdom? Let's discuss this with Middle East Affairs analyst Dan Pfefferman. Dan, thank you very much indeed. What do you make of this? This was sort of announced yesterday afternoon, yesterday evening. The law firm involved Riverway Law. Apparently it's a niche immigration and nationality law firm. But they're allowed to, seemingly, represent a terrorist group. What's going on here?
I think it's absolutely ridiculous, and they're trying to use the Trojan horse of the language and the mechanisms of democracies and free societies in order to bring terrorism and radical extremism into your fine country and your fine democracy. And it's a mockery. It's a mockery of everything free speech, rule of law, and democracy stands for. Hamas, which in Arabic stands for the Islamic Resistance Movement. I'm not sure what they're resisting. It's a pure unchecked terrorist movement, even if before the October 7th massacre, in which they broke a ceasefire, And I remind viewers every time I'm on the air, Israel left Gaza in 2005. Israel pulled out every last settler and soldier from the Gaza Strip in 2005 and gave the Palestinians a chance at sovereignty, and they had a de facto state and de facto independence in the Gaza Strip since 2005. And they murdered, raped, brutalized, and committed an unbelievable massacre of 1,200 Israelis, most of them civilians, and even the soldiers were unarmed soldiers, on October the 7th, kidnapped 250, mostly civilians, back into the Gaza Strip. This is the playbook of Islamic extremist movements. This is I remind the viewers that Hamas is the Palestinian branch of the Muslim Brotherhood movement, which seeks, whether through military means, through terrorism, or through manipulating the mechanisms of democracies and free speech and human rights organizations, and making a mockery of all of them, to overtake the societies in which they are. And so this is exactly
the language of victimhood as well.
Absolutely.
I suppose the peculiar thing here is that there is no way that under any territory run by Hamas, that sort of freedom of speech and freedom of association and right to protest would ever be allowed.
No, that's absolutely right. I mean, we only have to look a few years ago when Gazans finally started waking up to this horror regime that they elected. I have to remind again the viewers, in 2006, they elected Hamas because the Palestinian Authority, the PLO, was seen as corrupt and incompetent. And at the time, Hamas was seen as the more authentic, kind of connected to the people, Palestinian political movement. It is a political movement and a terrorism in one. You cannot separate the two, and that is the kind of nitpicking that this legal group is trying to do. Palestinians have tried to protest against Hamas's dictatorship and corruption. Billions of dollars in international aid have gone into Hamas's coffers and war machines. 500 miles of tunnels that we've discovered under Gaza. I'll give you just a short fact. The amount of material and money to go into 1 mile of tunnel construction can construct a 3-story medical clinic. So imagine how many medical clinics and schools could have been constructed, and instead they take apart water pipes to make rockets. They take billions of dollars into making this war machine with the express goal of launching terrorist attacks and war against Israel,
presenting themselves
and then
as
hiding behind their own civilians. I'll give you one last thing.
We're going to have to... okay, very quickly, Dan. Very quickly.
Yahya Sinwar, the now dead Hamas leader, was called the Butcher, not for killing Israelis, but for killing dissident Palestinians.
Well, Dan Pfefferman, thank you very much indeed. Middle East Affairs analyst. Good to have you on. It's absolutely spot on. I'm so sick of people who are the antithesis of, who represent everything that is not Western liberal democracy, using our language and our mechanism of liberal human rights and all of that to basically hit us with a stick.
Yeah, it's... I mean, we've seen it time and time again. Liberal Western democracies being usurped by forces using the mechanisms of liberal Western democracy to bring about intolerance and totalitarianism. Now, we should say that we did reach out to the Home Office for a statement on this story, but a Home Office spokesperson said they did not comment on prescription matters.
Right. Well, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Coming up, have you noticed, are train fare dodgers on the rise? We're going to speak to a former Conservative special advisor who says people are, about why people are getting away with not paying for their train travel. It does seem to be a bit of a pandemic.
I know, well, he's run into a pretty shocking instance of it himself. And we've learned perhaps why people are getting away with it. That's to come after your latest headlines.
Good afternoon. Your headlines at 1:31. The EU has put retaliatory tariffs against the US on hold after Donald Trump paused tariff hikes. Global markets have bounced back following President Trump's announcement, with the UK's FTSE 100 soaring by more than 6%. The 90-day pause on higher tariffs brings almost all nations down to the minimum levy of 10%. It opens a window to strike new trade deals with almost all countries invited to the negotiating table. For China, however, the US president raised the levies to 125%, citing a lack of respect from Beijing. China has hit back, slapping retaliatory tariffs of 84% on all US imports, deepening the trade war between the two nations. The Cabinet Office is set to cut its staff by more than 2,000 people as the Labour government seeks to shrink the civil service. The department will reduce its staff by almost a third, with 1,200 employees being made redundant, while another 900 will be transferred elsewhere. Along with other reforms, the Cabinet Office says the cuts will save £110 million a year by 2028. Now, Home Office sources have told GB News that the government is now considering more than 5 grooming gang local inquiries. It comes after Safeguarding Minister Jess Phillips said last night that they will not hesitate to go further, despite accusations the plans were being watered down. It follows the government's refusal to hold a national inquiry, instead opting for a more localised approach. Meanwhile, Conservative Party leader Kemi Badenoch said the Labour government is dishonest.
I'm calling for a full national inquiry for this scandal witnesses. And what really shocked me was that Labour actually announced on the last day of Parliament that they're just, not having any of the inquiries they promised back in January. Why did they announce that if they weren't going to go through with it? I think that that is dishonest and actually leads the public to believe that this is a government that just tells them what they want to hear but doesn't do anything.
In other news, the NHS will get its own Royal Mail postage class to stop late letters leading to missed appointments. A new barcode, A new barcode system will be introduced to automatically identify, separate and process NHS letters. The Health Secretary has said it will ensure patients get their appointment information when they need it. And a photo of the King and Queen during their secret meeting with the Pope on their Italian state visit has been released. Buckingham Palace said King Charles and Queen Camilla were delighted to meet the pontiff in the Vatican yesterday. It's understood the visit was only confirmed at the last minute and was subject to the Pope's health. Those are the latest GB News headlines. More in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
What are you so happy about?
I've just made a claim.
My Claim Group.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
And here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.2921 and €1.1651. The price of gold is £2,418 and 23 pence per ounce. And the FTSE 100's at 8,000 points.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report. Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
The latest GB News Travel.
Good afternoon, I'm Russell Holding. The M3 in Antrim is partly blocked northbound by an accident at junction 1A for the M2 north of Belfast. In Gwynedd, the A55 is closed in both directions between junctions 11 and 10 between Llanfairpwll and Bangor after an accident with long delays as a result. Train services are suspended between Bristol Temple Meads and Bristol Parkway because of an incident. In London, the A1 is closed each way along Upper Street in Islington after an accident, and the A13 is closed each way along Commercial Road at Stepney Green after an accident, and Eurotunnel are reporting a wait of up to half an hour for passengers at Folkestone after a technical problem. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
People sometimes think if someone is homeless, they're not trying for work, but I mean, you clearly have been.
Yes,
just not getting enough to actually be able
That's
to
the thing.
fund lots of expenses.
When you're self-employed, anyone who's self-employed will understand me that it's got its moments of being busy and quieter.
And have you experienced that stigma of being homeless, not having anywhere to call home?
Yes, I definitely have. I felt it through losing friends. I've realised who my true people are, I would say. It's crazy how humanity still exists More recently than not, I put a post out saying I didn't have anywhere to go one of the nights. And I was in the council the next day and I needed to be in Windsor because the council or nearby. And a couple of people reached out that I didn't even know, a couple, and I stayed at theirs. And they even give me a warm meal. So humanity does exist. And but where's my friends in all this, you know?
Yeah.
A few friends have stepped up a little bit more now and realised this is, you know, become a problem. When they've seen me and actually spoke to me properly and realised this is what I'm going through, they've helped me and let me stay on the sofa or, you know, but it's all temporary.
Just briefly, what about charities in all of this? Are they able to help?
Crisis and Shelter, I've just gone around in circles with. I haven't got any direct help so much. Not been able to get through to anyone. I've wrote to them, I've emailed them, I've Instagrammed them. But the only charity that has helped me, and it's a kind of an unusual one, is Dogs Trust.
Oh, right.
Because I walk dogs, I've been in contact with them to help the homeless dogs get rehomed. I was supporting them, and then all of a sudden they've pulled me in and said, look, you should come down to the Newbury Dogs Trust in Berkshire. We can support you. We have this together through homelessness.
The People's Channel.
Well, good afternoon, Britain. It's 38 minutes past 1. And have you ever wondered why your train fare keeps increasing year on year? I have.
Well, former Conservative Special Advisor and friend of the channel, James Price, he might have found out just one reason why. He tweeted this yesterday. As happens every day, a man just pushed through the gates to exit Kilburn Underground Station at 1:23 in the afternoon, along with two of his small sons. I pointed this out to one of your staff, playing on his phone behind the glass, as I might add, who literally shrugged at me and didn't care. Why should my fares go up when you won't make an example of these people?
Well, Transport for London responded to James, and they said staff are instructed not to confront fare evaders. Well, there you go. I mean, well, that's that, isn't it? So does this sort of behaviour make the fares we pay more expensive?
Well, delighted to say that James Price joins us in the studio. James, were you shocked when you learnt that it's official TfL policy for the staff not to interfere with people just ramming their way through the barriers?
Nothing shocks me about Sadiq Khan's London anymore, I'm afraid. And when you see so many examples of this, you do just get jaded to it. You know, the tubes have never been more packed in certain morning commutes, and you're all kind of crammed in like sardines. It's bad enough. Everybody now taps an Oyster card, or you can tap a fancy watch or a phone or something, beep your way through. It's a couple of pounds for the journey. On you go, fine, happy days. And that you see every single day now in underground stations and overground, everywhere you might think, probably buses as well, you'll see people either ghost through past people or they'll just push their way straight through the barrier. Now, what does that do? Now, not only does that mean there are more people on the tube than are paying for it, and therefore more of our own money is having to go on this and costs go up for those good law-abiding people. But what's the corollary effect of that? I said in that segment that this chap was there with his two small sons. Well, what lesson does that say to these kids? It means you don't have to abide by any of the rules or anything. You might then have other people around who watch this, as I do every single day. You see people doing this. You think, well, do you know what? Screw it. I'm just going to do this as well. I'm going to go through. Why should I pay however many hundreds or thousands of pounds it is every single year in order to use the tube network when these guys get away with it? And then I might think, well, what else am I going to just ignore? And it's that kind of deterioration of the social fabric that we're seeing across London and other major cities in the UK that is leading to the quality of life for so many people becoming worse.
Oh, yeah, this isn't just a London-centric story, although perhaps it is pretty bad in London, but everywhere, all of the major cities, people just taking absolute liberties, and then all the law-abiding citizens, as you say, having to cough up for the difference. But yes, the two sons with this chap, that's what caught my eye, in particular with this story as well. What kind of chance does this man have of raising, I mean, he probably doesn't care, but raising law-abiding children? Yeah, I mean, seriously.
Yeah, exactly right. And it is this kind of, I think that this was an idea trialled in the 1980s in New York, the kind of broken windows idea, that if you let low-level things like graffiti and smashed-up windows go without being fixed, people stop caring about the rest of it. And so I counted in the last sort of 24 hours around this time. Yesterday morning, my wife was walking to the tube, she tripped over and some bloke leered over her and scared her and freaked her out. This morning, I went for a morning run, I saw some bloke in a balaclava on a hoodie, screaming and shouting at a chap in a car with his son, and I stopped, I filmed him, what the heck are you doing, all the rest of it. Last night, wife and I went to dinner, see some teenagers going past smoking a massive spliff of some illegal narcotic in 24 hours, all in nice bits of London. And when all these things add up, you start to realise why it is that things are falling apart so fast.
I see it so regularly. People who are either mentally disturbed or brain-addled on some other thing, just sort of in a public transport node, shouting, yelling, scaring people. But more than that, people who don't seem to be addled in any way, shape or form, just ramming their way through barriers as a matter of course, even right in front of the people that are supposed to enforce the rules at train stations. This is what made me so particularly irate about what you tweeted there, and the response that you got back, that there is actually an instruction to not confront, not even to shout oi at the people who ram through the infrastructure that is there to make sure that these services are funded. I mean, what sort of a policy is this for TfL to have?
Yeah, it's a terrible policy. You know, I saw this happen, and you think eventually, right, I'm not in a huge, great rush going between meetings, and I went into the little booth or behind the glass with some chap playing on his phone, and as you say, I just got a shrug. Now, I probably wouldn't want this guy, actually, to be confronting the person, because he looked like a fairly elderly fellow, didn't look like he'd be able to handle a confrontation. And when you see these guys, they're pretty strong, they're pretty aggressive. You've got to be reasonably buff to be able to push through some of these barriers.
I don't know, I see kids doing it. I see people who must be 16 or 17 just as a matter of course.
And I think the problem is that whether it's TfL or the police, they start to realise that if you're going to be violent to them, they're going to back away. And then you have this concept of anarcho-tyranny in the academic literature, which is the idea that the government will then, whether it's TfL or the police or whoever else, will double down on all the law-abiding people who are out there, right? When you accidentally drop a bit of litter or something, they'll come down and whack you with a fine. When you accidentally go 31 and a 30, they'll slap you with a great fine, because it looks like they're doing something.
Tweet, the police will turn up at your door.
I'm surprised I'm not arrested yet.
Because they would rather not go to the door of the person with the knife or who's done the mugging or stolen the phone.
And that's why Sadiq Khan puts up these posters saying, oh, you know, staring can be seen as harassment or whatever, we're going to catch you, when women are literally being groped and God knows what on the tubes every day. And it's, oh, don't stare at people, you know, low-hanging fruit or what. James, we could talk about this all day, but thank you very much indeed. I mean, to have a cohesive society that actually works, you need like 97% of people to be doing the right thing all the time. I feel like maybe we're getting lower and lower.
You need to enforce the little things. People need to have the expectation that if you barge your way through a barrier, someone will stop you. I think the next time I see it, I might whip out my phone and film it, or just say something. I don't know, because I see it too often.
You don't want to be stabbed, do you?
This is true. This is true.
That's the problem.
Well, if you want to get away from all of the stabbing, you might want to travel to a spot of Europe. Yes, here's the travel weather for those European holiday destinations.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun.
Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Heavy showers and thunderstorms impacting Portugal and southwestern parts of Spain, but elsewhere across Europe we are going to see improving temperatures through the week. Initially some heavy showers affecting Tenerife and Madeira, eventually moving into parts of Portugal and Spain, but as we head our way further east, largely settled, lots of sunny spells and improving temperatures too, starting off in the mid-teens but increasing through the course of the week. And there'll be plenty of sunshine as we head into next week, the odd shower still affecting Tenerife, and that's where we'll see the best of the temperatures too.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Well, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News, and up next, the NHS is bringing in a new tactic to try and reduce the number of people missing their doctor's appointments. Find out more in just a moment.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. It's quite a cloudy start across the southeastern half of the UK, but this cloud should eventually clear towards coastal areas, leaving a fine and dry day for many, lots of warm sunshine, but we could still see some cloud lingering on around the coasts of the southeast where we see a bit more of an easterly flow, but across more northern areas, a northwesterly wind direction, really clearing away that cloud, particularly across eastern parts of Scotland, northeastern England, where they've seen quite cloudy days over the last couple of days, but now there's going to be plenty more warm sunshine to come, so a much better day on offer. Though across coasts of East Anglia, there. Parts of Kent, once again, another cloudy day ahead and feeling quite cool here. Also a fair amount of cloud across the very far north of Scotland, but many areas seeing a warm day, plenty of wall-to-wall sunshine and feeling warm in that sunshine as well. Now, to end the day across Scotland, still plenty of cloud pushing in to the very far north, so not quite as much of a nice end to the day across Shetland and Orkney, but a lot of Scotland remaining largely dry. Similar across Northern Ireland, a few more clearer skies to end the day here, and much clearer across northern parts of England, parts of Wales and southern parts of England too. A clear end to the night, but that does mean temperatures are soon going to dip away. So it is going to be fairly chilly as we head into the overnight period. Once again, a chance of some rural frost, but it's not going to be turning quite as cold as it has done over recent nights, and we're likely to see some mist and fog patches towards dawn too. And once again, further areas of cloud pushing into the very far north of Scotland. This might bring some drizzle across Shetland by the time we reach the morning, but lows widely around 4 to 5 degrees Celsius, so not quite turning as cold as it has done over previous mornings. So it's going to be quite a bright start, likely seeing some mist and fog in places. This clearing quite quickly through the morning, leaving once again another fine and dry end to the day. Plenty of sunshine and feeling much warmer too. Still some cloud lingering on across the far north of Scotland. Still some drizzle here, but otherwise a fine day ahead. Highs of 21 to 22 Celsius.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them. They catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's coming up to 10 to 2. Now, the NHS will get its own postage class. Yes, this is to stop late letters that contribute to missed appointments, we're told.
Yeah, I didn't see this coming. The Health Secretary has said that the system will ensure patients get their appointment information when they need it. Yes, I believe I have received an NHS letter after my appointment had already been. Yeah. I had received a text, and obviously I had made the initial appointment. But
the question is this long overdue for public sector organisations, or, frankly, are we a bit behind the times when it comes to sending all these letters? I mean, Emily, as you say, yes, we're all getting our letters late, but they text us, they email us.
Yeah. I mean, of course, there are elderly people and other people who struggle with, for whatever reason, who may prefer a letter. But is an NHS stamp, is that a bit much? Is that a bit much?
Also, I mean, how much later is this going to make all the rest of the post?
Yeah, exactly. Is the NHS post the most important post out there? Some might argue it is. It's about life and death, perhaps. It's about appointments for your health. Is there anything more important than that? But there could be.
There could be.
You could have a letter from a dying relative. You could have a bill that you need to pay, otherwise you're going to have the bailiffs around. Is the NHS post the most important post?
Yeah, how's this going to make postmen feel about their...
How's it going to make them feel?
Well, I mean, about sorting... I mean, you can easily see how there is a sort of hierarchy developing in the country of one of the most revered institutions. I mean, obviously the NHS is very, very important, but is this...
Do you believe this? Do you believe this? And how on earth can they prove this? Late letters are behind 2 million of the 8 million missed NHS appointments each year, according to analysis by Health Watch.
Exactly how
that cannot be true.
I know
that
exactly.
is people saying, "Oh, I didn't get the letter."
Yeah, that is exactly what's going on there.
That is a lie.
That is exactly what's going on there.
I can't prove it's a lie, but I think it's a lie.
No, I mean, of course.
A quarter of appointments.
You get a call from your doctor saying, "Why on earth did you not turn up to your appointment?" Which you obviously forgot about. Oh, no, sorry, the letter didn't arrive.
It's like the dog ate my homework.
I mean, a huge amount of supposed lost post, I guarantee you, is not actually lost.
I think that's nonsense.
Disorganised.
Because you don't just get given an appointment by the post. You've already agreed that appointment, and then they send you a confirmation by the post, as far as I know, as it's always been in my experience. Anyway, but perhaps let us know your thoughts on that one. It's an interesting one.
I mean, maybe this is a good system, but I also think they should not be sending letters out by default. You should opt in to have the letter, I think. Because some people do need the letters, but do we all need letter confirmations as well? I would happily get my confirmations solely by text.
Yes, but then you are, young.
Yeah, but that's why I think an opt-in system is the best one here. Probably
Well, there
save
you
a lot of
go.
money.
Would you like to have an NHS postage stamp? I mean, this would be a novelty for the first letter.
One to collect.
One to collect, eh? This is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Now, up next, we are going to be hearing from the Prime Minister, and it's going to focus on the government's latest attempt to recruit more police officers. West Yorkshire Police doesn't want any white officers anymore, have you heard?
Well, we'll get to that after your latest weather forecast.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good afternoon. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. As we head into tomorrow, any overnight fog patches readily clearing away, leaving a fine end to the week with lots of warm sunshine across the country. And the reason for these settled conditions is because high pressure has dominated our weather over the last few days, bringing some cloud to eastern areas at times, but also plenty of sunshine too. Now we're going to see a return of this cloud for a time as we head through into the evening. Around coastal areas of East Anglia, parts of Kent eventually clearing away to areas further south might see some low cloud during the overnight period. And across the north, far north of Scotland, also seeing plenty of cloud here, perhaps some drizzle by the time we reach the end of the morning across Shetland. But for many, it's going to be a dry, clear night, feeling chilly, though not quite as chilly as recent nights. And it's likely we'll see some mist and fog patches in rural spots by the time we reach the morning. So to start the day across Scotland tomorrow, there is going to be some higher cloud across Scotland. That might just make the sunshine look a bit hazy during the morning. Some drizzly outbreaks across Shetland too, but a much clearer start across Northern Ireland. Probably quite a bright start to the day, and similar across parts of England and Wales. Quite a bright, clear start to the morning, but just a chance we could see some lower cloud, particularly around coastal areas of the south. A little bit chilly to start as well, but eventually through the morning we'll see things warm up fairly quickly. Any mist and fog clearing away fairly quickly too, and that does leave us with a very nice end to the week. Wall-to-wall sunshine for many places and feeling very warm in that sunshine too. It's just across the far north of Scotland though where we're going to see a bit of a cloudier day with some outbreaks of drizzle, but for many it's going to be a nice end to the week. Highs of 22, possibly even 23 Celsius with light winds. Into the evening, once again, those temperatures soon dipping away as the sun goes down. Likely we'll see some rural frost in places and some mist and fog once again, and still that cloud and rain skirting into northern areas. And for the second half of the weekend, a change is on its way. More rain and showers, and it is going to be feeling cooler too. Bye-bye.
A positive outlook through the night will power through to a bright day ahead. Boxed Home Battery Storage, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Well, good afternoon, Britain. It's now 5 minutes to 2. We're back to you slightly early. Why? Because we're going to be shortly hearing from the Prime Minister and indeed the Home Secretary on their new police plans. Yes, the number of neighbourhood police officers are going to be increased, so say the politicians.
Yes, so here we are. Here's a number of what appear to be police officers and other community officers. They're waiting for the speech to begin. Now, they're promising 13,000 police officers, bobbies on the beat, to patrol communities, which of course is a positive thing. Yeah. But not all of them will have arrest powers, will they?
No.
Some of them will be PCSOs. We understand that only 3,000 will actually be fully qualified police officers in the traditional way that you think of a police officer. So is it a bit of a sneaky announcement?
Yes, which areas are going to get the actual police officers with the powers of arrest and which areas are just going to get... nothing against PCSOs. I mean, they do important work in the community. But if they are not accompanied by a police officer with the powers of arrest, are they going to be that same reassuring presence alone that so many people would actually want to see with a patrolling policeman as we used to have in this country.
Yeah, and I guess we want to know when this is going to happen. Hearing that this is plans for 2029, that yes, there will be an uptick in the next year, I believe is what the Home Secretary is going to say today. But is that good enough? We have to wait till 2029. To have these police officers, and this is something that's been promised time and time again from successive governments.
Now,
and then we hear about rogue recruitment processes. I mean, it sounds as though West Yorkshire Police are making some rather bizarre decisions, if not discriminatory decisions, saying that in order to get their diversity up, they're going to put a temporary pause on white recruits. I mean, sounds a bit racist to me, Tom.
I mean, I don't see how that is anything other than a discriminatory practice, which does seem to me, the last time I checked the Equality Act, to be illegal.
Yeah, well, I wonder if someone will put that to the Home Secretary and the Prime Minister, because it's deeply concerning. We see so much of this, though, don't we? We saw it in the armed forces as well. Yeah. The drive for diversity, for whatever reason, has led to some very discriminatory practices.
Absolutely, in the search for quotas that are actually very hard to hit. But it is interesting that this announcement is in Cambridgeshire, of course. It's one of the areas that has local elections. Quite a competitive mayoral election there as well. I'm sure that has absolutely nothing to do with the reason why the government has chosen this location to announce their new police plan.
And it's difficult because crime is always a big thing in local elections, isn't it? And currently, the majority of people don't believe that crime is being handled particularly well.
No, so I'm sure that this is an entirely governmental decision that has nothing to do with politics whatsoever. But it is interesting that this is actually something that I think the country has been calling out for a long time. You always hear politicians saying we need to get more bobbies on the beat. Frontline, old-fashioned policing of our communities. I mean, local officers that people know, a face that you can see around the town. That is something that people have been calling out for a very long time.
Oh, absolutely. And I think a lot of us, I mean, I don't know about you, but you look around your local community and you see a rise in antisocial behaviour, or what appears to be. Even if the stats tell you otherwise, you feel it. Shoplifting seems to be legal in this country. We were talking about how, Transport for London don't have the powers or are told not to intervene when someone fare dodges. The same thing security guards at Tesco or wherever else.
Well, the police won't come if it's under, I think, £200 or £300 of shoplifting.
Yeah, and you've got shopkeepers living in fear.
And the people who constantly go in and swipe things off the shelves know this. They know that they act with impunity as long as they only steal, £100 worth of goods rather than £200 or £300 worth of goods.
Yeah, I mean, it's a nice announcement, isn't it? 13,000 new neighbourhood police people, bobbies on the beat. This is what people want. They want a back-to-basics approach. Then we see stories about police officers using their limited resources, presumably. We're always told that resources are so tight and so stretched, to knock on people's doors for WhatsApp messages that might have offended someone somehow. And this is something that continues to happen. Reading that 30 arrests per day, I believe it was, for things relating to communications that may be deemed offensive, anxiety-inducing, or other things. I mean, seriously.
Now, I know this might be an unpopular thing to say, because I know everyone likes the idea of local police officers patrolling. Is it the most effective way to stop crime? We know that, for example, violent crime is overwhelmingly conducted by a small population of career criminals. Would it not be more impactful on the rates of crime in the UK to have specialist teams investigating who the career criminals are and targeting them in sting operations? Would that not be a more effective way to get down the level of crime?
I mean, I wish we could have both, Tom.
Yeah.
Because it is quite reassuring, isn't it?
Yeah.
Particularly for what we deem vulnerable people. So whether it's elderly people or people who, children or whatever, or, young mothers, or whatever it is, walking around your high street and seeing crime going on around you, people in hoodies, people with balaclavas on, people zooming around on those bikes that you can rent from everywhere. Get rid of those. Looking intimidating. Just having a policeman there is quite useful.
Yeah.
I'm not sure some of the security-type people, the local authority-type people, are particularly menacing.
But whatever happens to a policeman's hat? Why have they seemingly
Some of them wear them
disappeared?
still, don't they?
I have not seen a proper tall policeman. Is there a word for that hat? I'm sure there probably is. But I mean,
someone will tell us.
what is wrong? Why? I mean, I think it is actually disappointing that in the United Kingdom we have sort of reverted to having police officers who wear high-vis vests, rather than you look at sort of the French police force, the Belgian police force, the Italian police force. They look more suave. Yeah. They're uniformed. And I think that matters, whereas our police too often look like sort of figures of fun with their shiny yellow coats on. I mean...
Well, they like dancing around at various festivals and carnivals, don't they?
Proper, smart uniforms again. I mean,
like the Bavarian police. They look very smart. The French police look very smart.
Yeah.
Our police sometimes look smart. Let's not do them down too much. But, yes, we are waiting for Keir Starmer and Yvette Cooper, who are going to be speaking about this new pledge for 13,000 more police officers on the street. Bobby's on the beat, but we're quickly going to go to the headlines and then come straight back.
Good afternoon. It's just gone 2 o'clock. These are your headlines. The EU has put retaliatory tariffs against the US on hold after Donald Trump paused tariff hikes. The 90-day pause on higher tariffs brings almost all nations down to the minimum levy of 10%. It opens a window to strike new trade deals, with most countries now invited to the negotiating table. For China, however, the US president raised the levies to 125%, citing a lack of respect from Beijing. China has hit back, slapping retaliatory tariffs of 84% on all US imports, deepening the trade war between the two nations. Meanwhile, Reform UK leader Nigel Farage says a deal with the US is absolutely possible, as he offered his assistance to the UK government.
We are in a much better position than our neighbours in Europe to negotiate a tariff-free package. I absolutely believe that that is achievable over the course of the next month or two. I'm not going to be seen to interfere with what the government's doing, but if they ask me to help, I promise you I do it, not because I'm a supporter of the Labour Party, far from it, but I do it in the national interest.
The Cabinet Office is set to cut its staff by more than 2,000 people as the Labour government seeks to shrink the civil service. The department will reduce its staff by almost a third, with 1,200 employees being made redundant, while another 900 will be transferred elsewhere. Along with other reforms, the Cabinet Office says the cuts will save £110 million a year by 2028. Now, Home Office sources have told GB News that the government is now considering more than 5 grooming gang local inquiries. It comes after Safeguarding Minister Jess Phillips said last night that they will not hesitate to go further, despite accusations the plans were being watered down. It follows the government's refusal to hold a national inquiry, instead opting for a more localised approach. Conservative Party leader Kemi Badenoch said the Labour government is dishonest.
I'm calling for a full national inquiry for this scandal witnesses. And what really shocked me was that Labour actually announced on the last day of Parliament that they're just, not having any of the inquiries they promised back in January. Why did they announce that if they weren't going to go through with it? I think that that is dishonest and actually leads the public to believe that this is a government that just tells them what they want to hear but doesn't do anything.
In other news, thousands of police officers could return to our streets as part of Labour's plans to tackle the country's shoplifting crisis. The Prime Minister is today expected to announce that police forces will have dedicated teams of officers focused on patrolling town centres at peak times. This is all part of the government's neighbourhood policing guarantee, which will see 13,000 named local officers by 2029. Sir Keir is expected to say visible policing has fallen dramatically in recent years, with 90% of crime left unsolved. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says at least 155 Chinese citizens are fighting for Russia in the war. His comments come after 2 Chinese fighters were captured by Ukraine, the first alleged proof China is now fighting alongside Russia in the war. Speaking yesterday, President Zelensky claimed that there were many more Chinese nationals engaged in the conflict based on information gathered by his government. China, however, has previously denied these claims and called for a sober view of its role in the Ukraine crisis. Meanwhile, a US citizen serving a 12-year prison sentence in Russia has been released in a prisoner swap between Moscow and Washington. Amateur ballerina Xenia Karolina had been in prison in Russia for over a year after giving a £40 donation to a charity supporting Ukraine. It's understood Miss Karolina left for the US on a plane from Abu Dhabi this morning. Now, Andrew Tate has been accused of holding a gun to a woman's face before saying, "You're going to do as I say or there'll be hell to pay." That's according to court documents. Documents from the case submitted to the UK's High Court by 4 women who allege Tate used sexual violence against them surfaced today. One of the claimants alleges the former professional kickboxer grabbed her by the throat on a number of occasions in 2015, had assaulted her with a belt and had pointed a gun at her face. The UK is in for a blast of sunshine, with temperatures set to hit 24 degrees in London and the southeast tomorrow, making it the hottest day of the year so far. But with the heat comes a warning. Fire crews say the risk of wildfires is extreme after weeks of dry weather and barely any rain. Blazes have already broken out across Northern Ireland and Scotland, with crews responding to dozens of wildfire calls overnight. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to Tom and Emily.
Right, good afternoon, Britain. It's 7 minutes past 2. Now, we are waiting for the Prime Minister to talk to us all about his pledge for 13,000 more police officers, and Yvette Cooper as well, the Home Secretary, of course. But in the meantime, Home Office sources have told GB News that the government is considering more than 5 grooming gang local inquiries. This after it appeared Jess Phillips had watered down this commitment.
Well, it follows the government's refusal to hold that national inquiry that some have been calling for, instead opting for the more localised approach.
Well, Charlie Peters is here with the details for us. Charlie, where are we with this?
Well, this morning, Home Office sources told GB News that they were now considering more of these inquiries, and it comes through various changes in the government's stance. If you look at it really objectively, it has shifted, because in January and the 16th, they said that there would be 5 local inquiries, a hub-and-spoke method, where Tom Crowther, KC, a barrister, would set up a framework and other local areas would benefit from it. In recent weeks, the wording has changed. They've started saying further inquiries, not necessarily committing to 5. And then this week, we heard from the Safeguarding Minister, Jess Phillips, who said that they were now adopting a flexible approach to that £5 million fund they announced in January. It could include further inquiries, but following feedback from local authorities, it will also go towards more therapeutic services and also victims' panels. So Home Office sources telling us today that following the backlash that we saw over the last couple of days, particularly from the Conservatives, but also from survivors and campaigners, some family members telling GB News that they felt betrayed. They were hoping that their town would be one of the 5. So far, only Oldham has been confirmed. But the sources telling us now that there are going to be more than 5 inquiries announced. We've had a reaction from Conservative sources as well in the last half hour or so, with them telling me that this is a humiliating U-turn for the government, and that they said that as Jess Phillips and the Home Secretary Yvette Cooper reverse ferret on their announcement on Tuesday, it doesn't go far enough, because they said that these local inquiries can't compel witnesses, can't compel evidence, and they said that Labour has been dragging their feet on this issue, adding that the British public will be wondering why. So quite a stern response there from Conservative sources.
Charlie, I'm just going to interrupt you because the Prime Minister has appeared in Cambridgeshire for this announcement on police officers. Let's go straight.
I am a strong advocate, as people know, of neighbourhood policing, as in my mind, every crime or incident has an impact upon our community. Crimes, whether they be the most serious or those occurrences that impact upon the quality of life of individuals, such as antisocial behaviour, should be tackled with the utmost importance. Neighbourhood policing is the foundation to trust and confidence, and this has never changed over many years. We have outlined our innovative plans to take this guarantee forward, as I'm sure my colleagues right across the country have done. A partnership approach is vital to ensure success, and I look forward to delivering this guarantee alongside yourselves, the constabulary, and with key partners, and of course, importantly, alongside the communities for which we serve. Thank you for coming to Cambridgeshire. It's really welcome. And may I hand over to the Right Honourable Home Secretary. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nick. Thank you to the Chief Constable, and to thank you
for everything that you and your officers are doing every single day, week in, week out, to keep people in Cambridgeshire safe. Thank you too for showing me some of the work this morning that Cambridgeshire neighbourhood police teams are doing, the excellent work in communities as well. And we owe all of you a huge debt of thanks for the work that you do each day, but importantly for the work, the partnership working between us as the government and policing to support communities and to rebuild that local community confidence in tackling neighbourhood crime. Today you'll hear from the Prime Minister on how we're setting out our neighbourhood policing guarantee, because neighbourhood policing has always been really at the very heart of the British policing model, and that principle that goes right back to Robert Peel, where the police are the public are the police, policing really rooted in communities. And the truth is, in many parts of the country, that neighbourhood tradition has been lost. And under the pressure of recent years, we've lost more than 10,000 people across the country from neighbourhood teams, and the number of people who say they regularly see the police on the beat has halved, and there's a postcode lottery on whether communities are getting a proper neighbourhood team. And at the same time, we've seen across the country the big increases in things like shop theft, street theft, persistent antisocial behaviour in town centres, where criminals are able to take advantage because of local policing being cut back. And that hits right at the heart of local communities and our local economies. And so that's why, as part of the government's plan for change set out by the Prime Minister last year, we've been so determined to rebuild neighbourhood policing, and over the course of the Parliament to deliver 13,000 more neighbourhood police and PCSOs, which will be a more than 50% increase in neighbourhood policing. So to set out the new neighbourhood policing guarantee today, the named contactable officers, the additional plans for neighbourhood policing in every region, and restoring that principle of officers and PCSOs who know their local communities, work with local businesses and communities to solve problems and prevent crimes, and to target repeat offenders and gather that intelligence to convict criminals and get justice. I want to thank Rachel Bacon and the National Police Chiefs Council and police chiefs across the country for working with us to build this neighbourhood guarantee, and to thank the College of Policing for working with us on the new performance framework that will increase standards and training and professionalism. That's the partnership approach we're taking nationally. It's the same partnership approach we want to embed in neighbourhood policing locally. That's the building block of good policing across the country, and it's how we deliver safer streets. So with that, let me introduce the Prime Minister, who has made it the mission of this government to restore neighbourhood policing and make our streets safe again. Prime Minister.
Thank you very much, Yvette. Thank you, Chief Constable. And thank you to all of you here for being here this afternoon and for stepping up every day to keep our communities safe. The Chief Constable's been telling me some of the ways in which you're doing that here in Cambridgeshire, particularly the way you're working with youth workers, and I'm really interested to take that and see whether that will work elsewhere. So what you're doing day in, day out, stepping up, that deserves our thanks. But it deserves more than our thanks. It deserves our support so that you can do the jobs that we're asking you to do and do them well. And that, in a sense, is what today is all about. Under the last government, as Yvette has just said, neighbourhood policing was decimated. And it became a postcode lottery where the address of an individual determined what sort of service that they got. And the proportion of people who saw a uniformed officer in their local area was halved in the last decade, halved. And the result, crime soaring in our town centres and public confidence in policing going down. And that must be soul destroying for you, doing what we're asking you to do and life being made much harder to do it. And it affects you, it affects us, and it affects all of our communities. And when I think about antisocial behaviour, I think about the teenage girls that I met in a college in Stoke-on-Trent. And I asked them how they felt, how safe they felt. I expected them to tell me they felt safe after dark or in certain circumstances, and they told me that they didn't feel safe walking down their own high street in broad daylight, because they thought they were going to get harassed. And these were girls, young women, between about the age of 18 and 20. I think of the family in my constituency came to see me in my surgery, who said that every night cannabis smoke comes up from the streets and the corridors in their block into the rooms of their children through the windows. And I'm sure you've all heard this, but all of my career, whether as a lawyer, a prosecutor or a politician, people have said to me, antisocial behaviour, Keir, it's low-level crime. Well, it isn't. It really affects individuals, their families and their communities, and inhibits what they can do. So that's why we've got to end this culture of crime that is destroying our communities. Now, last year we announced an extra £1 billion in funding, including an additional 200 million specifically on neighbourhood policing. And we're introducing tough new respect orders to crack down on antisocial behaviour, because I want you to have the tools that you need to do the job that we ask you to do. And with our neighbourhood policing guarantee, we'll deliver 13,000 new neighbourhood officers by 2029. And today I can announce the first step, 3,000 new neighbourhood officers by the start of next year. All of them visible, on the beat, and serving their communities. Not stuck behind a desk or taken away to plug shortages from elsewhere. And from this July, so just a few months' time, every neighbourhood will have a named contactable officer. They'll have guaranteed police patrols in town centres and hotspots, particularly at peak times like Friday and Saturday nights. And people will be able to go online and measure how their local neighbourhood team is performing. And there'll be a range of ways for local residents and businesses to raise their concerns and to demand change from their neighbourhood policing team. So these major reforms will help us prevent crime in the first place, because that's the way that you do your work, to tackle it when it happens, and to stop it from spiralling. A transformation in neighbourhood policing that will transform our communities. A manifesto commitment being delivered. This is at the heart of our plan for change. I worked as Chief Prosecutor to keep our streets safe, and I'll do the same as Prime Minister. That's what the neighbourhood policing guarantee is all about. Police back on the beat where they belong, restoring pride and confidence in our communities, and rewriting the social contract to restore safety and security to our streets. That's the change that working people voted for in July, and the change that this government is delivering. Thank you again for everything that you do. Thank you very much. I'm now going to do some media, and then I'm going to come back and talk to you, which is what I most want to do. But,
Well, we're just waiting for the Prime Minister to take some media questions. We've been listening to his announcement. New news that we've heard, 3,000 new officers of the 13,000 that we're expecting over the course of this Parliament, 3,000 by the start of next year. We also learnt that from July, this July, every neighbourhood will have a contactable local neighbourhood officer, and you'll be able to get in contact with that officer and see how they're doing as well online.
And of course, this is very much a top-down diktat. It will be up to those police forces themselves to make sure that they have these neighbourhood patrols. But earlier today, Conservative Party leader Kemi Badenoch had this to say in response to Labour's plans.
I'm calling for a full national inquiry for this scandal, witnesses. And what really shocked me was that Labour actually announced on the last day of Parliament that they're just, not having any of the inquiries they promised back in January. Why did they announce that if they weren't going to go through with it? I think that is dishonest and actually leads the public to believe that this is a government that just tells them what they want to hear but doesn't do anything.
Right.
Well, that was Kebby Badenoch talking about grooming gangs, which is, I suppose, a related Home Office issue.
Well, yes, very much under the Home Office brief, yes. But yes, these 13,000, interested to know what you make of it. Do you believe that there will be 3,000 more police officers roaming around communities? Have you noticed a lack of bobbies on the beat? Or are you in one of the areas, a postcode lottery, Keir Starmer called it? It really depends on where you are in the country, doesn't it?
Yeah, sometimes really can do. But of course, you're listening to and watching Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Now we'll soon be speaking to the Home Secretary to get her thoughts on not only the government's police recruitment drive, but also Hamas challenging their status as terrorists in the UK.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
4.2 million people in this country are living in hygiene poverty. That means they are having to daily make a choice between putting food on the table for themselves and their family, paying the rent, paying their bills, and buying the basic everyday essentials we all rely on.
And there must be such a stigma attached to, well, there is, we know that, to hygiene as well, because this isn't talked about. I mean, we're talking here this morning, 1 in 12 British people have to make a decision between eating and washing, but we never hear about that, do we? It's not spoken about.
You're absolutely right. We have, scarily normalised the conversation about food poverty and fuel poverty in this country. And what my charity, the Hygiene Bank, wants to do is to take one step on that road to ending hygiene poverty by abolishing VAT on soap, treating it as the basic staple that we all need every day. It's the first line of defence against illness and disease. Helps to keep us all safe.
It's a confidence thing. As well as if people are really struggling, that can affect your confidence and mental health and all the rest of it. But if you also know there's even the slight possibility of not smelling fresh, for example, but I mean that can totally destroy you in a workplace.
Completely, and we hear every day about children who are bullied in school or who are not going to school because their uniform isn't clean or they feel stinky. They're being bullied by their peers. We know that 13% of people living in hygiene poverty have avoided work for exactly that reason. 9% of people have avoided going to a job interview, and that's so wrong because it is trapping you in your difficulties. Hygiene poverty is limiting life chances, it's blocking opportunities, it's stopping people find a way out of the hard times they find themselves in. And the thing that I always remind myself is that we're all actually only one step away from this.
GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is the nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Right, well, it's 2:24. Now, we are going to be speaking to the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, very soon. Perhaps this will come up in our conversation. Hamas is being represented by a law firm based in London, a British law firm, and they're using the European Convention on Human Rights to challenge the prescription of Hamas as a terrorist organisation in the United Kingdom. They claim it is, in fact, a liberation and resistance movement and not a threat to the United Kingdom or its citizens.
Absolutely. So let's get some more on this now. Delighted to be joined by the human rights lawyer, Dr. Shoaib Khan. Thanks so much for joining us. Firstly, it seems utterly bizarre that this case is being brought. I mean, I think to most people, there's only one answer to this organisation that has, automatic weapons on its flag and has taken individuals as hostages. I mean, they're a terror group.
Well, firstly, just saying it's bizarre that it's being brought. I just don't understand.
I mean, so much has been said about this all day. I just don't understand. Are people saying that certain groups or organizations or individuals should just be excluded from the legal system? I mean, obviously, at least let's see what the judge says, what the court says, what the legal arguments are. I just don't understand why, how it can even be. I mean, we have war crimes trials. We have, genocide happening before our eyes. But still we say, if someone gets arrested, they get brought before a court. Of course, the court has to listen to them, see what their defense is, what their purported justification is. And of course, they need lawyers to do it. So I just don't understand why, unless, again, that is actually what we're saying, that if someone commits or is accused of a certain crime beyond a certain seriousness, after that, they are no longer entitled to have a lawyer or access to courts, which obviously, I completely disagree with.
That's not what this is, though, is it? They're taking a legal challenge against the Home Office, a decision to prescribe the organisation as a terrorist one in this country back in 2021, I believe it was, taken by the Home Secretary. We're not talking about a specific crime here. Their claim is that it's against the human rights of people who want to support Hamas in this country and want to be a part of the group in this country, because they say it's a resistance movement, and they're using the European Court of Human Rights to use the freedom of speech argument.
Yes, well, of course. Looking at history, and not even ancient history, the past few decades, groups that have been treated as and prescribed as terrorist organizations, and there are groups that we later either obey or somehow assume, now we recognize them to be freedom fighters. They freed and liberated the people and their countries. Or generally, even if we don't, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years later, we finally sit down and we start negotiating, and that's when finally peace prevails in that region. And we don't have to look too far, whether it's Northern Ireland or Afghanistan, so many other countries. And I think it's just sensible that we treat, people or groups that do have huge amounts of support, we treat them, if not as equals, then at least as someone who we have to listen to or negotiate with.
Hang on, what we're doing here is we're taking a political decision, or the argument is that we take a political decision out of the competency of elected politicians and throw it into the competency of the court system. The grounds under which this case is being brought are grounds of free speech. On those grounds, no organisation could be prescribed at all. What if someone wanted to support Al-Qaeda? What if someone wanted to support ISIS? Surely this would open that can of worms that, yes, prescription, by its very definition, prevents people from supporting such terror groups.
But that's the thing. A Home Secretary, as you said, a Home Secretary made a decision. Why is that infallible? Why do you somehow suggest,
because she's the elected Home Secretary.
No one can ever review this.
Why should it be the right? Why should it be the right?
That is a fault. That's why this appeals system exists. And it was Parliament that set up this appeal system, saying if a Secretary of State prescribes someone, they have a right to challenge it in court. And that's what this system would do.
Do you think that Hamas should be de-prescribed?
I'm not going to comment when that's exactly the point that's before a court right now. I don't think any of us should really be commenting on that. So I won't say either way on that. But obviously what happened on October 7th... But
it's just a legal application at this point. It's not gone through it's not going through the courts. It's just a legal application at this point.
Yes, but obviously that's something that, at some point is going to, a review commission or a court is going to look at it. So I don't think we should be, on that specific point, what we think. I don't think that's particularly useful at this stage.
Also,
but obviously what happened
most people in this country,
behavior before then, behavior after that, we all know that. But, let it be reviewed and let's see what decision the court comes to.
Are you concerned that there is a law firm in this country that is willing to represent Hamas? Does that not bother you at all?
No, sorry. Again, I think coming around to the first point, are we saying that there are certain groups or certain individuals who just don't deserve lawyers? If you want to come to court, come without lawyers. And I think that's generally a trend that we've seen over the past few months and years. And in fact, the Tories started under Priti Patel's on about attacking lawyers for cases they bring, in which I just don't understand. That's like, if the worst proven war criminal comes in for a doctor and, it's a suicide bomber who got injured.
It's interesting that Hamas, a prescribed terrorist organisation, is using the language of human rights, using the language of liberal democracy, using the language of victimhood to try and present a case to the British government, a Western liberal democracy. To be honest, I think it will make a lot of people in this country feel absolutely sick to the stomach, Dr. Sheib.
Yeah, no, but if that doesn't make sense, and if they're making a useless, stupid, illogical argument which isn't in compliance with our laws in this country, then of course the court will throw that out. So I mean, but the point is, are we saying they shouldn't even be allowed to bring a case, or the lawyers should be attached to taking them on? That's something I don't agree with.
I think the worry is that so many times we've seen lawyers be able to use, and in my view, manipulate European these human rights lawyers to keep, foreign criminals in this country, to prevent deportations of people who the Home Office wants to get rid of. Quite extreme examples of people being allowed to stay in this country that most Brits would be. So that's why I'm concerned that somehow this court case, this legal challenge, could be effective.
So I mean, I just don't understand. I mean, how are lawyers at fault there? The point is, there's two sides of lawyers. They both bring the case, and the judge decides. I mean, what's that got to do with the lawyers?
They've been tweeting furiously about it and retweeting people who are very much in favour of this legal challenge. So I think it's not just a lawyer just picked up this case because they were just a lawyer.
We can sort of presumably dispense with the fiction that lawyers are unique among all people to not hold opinions themselves, and that they are simply following whatever instruction lands before them.
No, but that's the
lawyers
case for
clearly
judges. That's
do
the case
have
for
views, and you
politicians.
do have.
That's the case of Priti Patel. I mean, maybe she already knew she wanted to do this before she became Home Secretary. What does that mean? The point is, as long as that's not known and she made a decision which she claimed was in compliance with the law, then as Home Secretary we have to accept that decision as the Secretary of a Home, as the decision of a Home. That's what judges do. Do we seriously think that no judge has any political views either way? We've had Brexit cases, all sorts of cases go to the Supreme Court and other courts. Of course they have their personal choices.
Well, Dr. Shiv Khan, thank you very much indeed. Human rights lawyer, there we go. In response to the story, the Home Office has said it does not comment on prescription matters.
Well, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Much more to come on the show. Let's see about this disappointment in local communities. We're going to hear more about that being forgotten in this ongoing battle against grooming gangs. All to come after your headlines with Sophia Wensler.
Tom, Emily, thank you. Your headlines at 2:32. The EU has put retaliatory tariffs against the US on hold after Donald Trump paused tariff hikes. The 90-day pause on higher tariffs brings almost all nations down to the minimum levy of 10%. It opens a window to strike new trade deals, with most countries invited to the negotiating table. For China, however, the US president raised the levies to 125%, citing a lack of respect from Beijing. China has hit back, slapping retaliatory tariffs of 84% on all US imports, deepening the trade war between the two nations. Now, the Prime Minister has pledged to transform neighbourhood policing during a speech alongside the Home Secretary in Cambridgeshire. Sir Keir Starmer vowed to deliver 13,000 new neighbourhood officers by 2029 and that 3,000 new officers will be recruited by the start of next year. The Prime Minister hit out at the Tories for having decimated local policing, while saying crime has been soaring in town centres. The Cabinet Office is set to cut its staff by more than 2,000 people as the Labour government seeks to shrink the civil service. The department will reduce its staff by almost a third, with 1,200 employees being made redundant, while another 900 will be transferred elsewhere. Along with other reforms, the Cabinet Office says the cuts will save £110 million a year by 2028. In other news, Home Office sources have told GB News that the government are now considering more than 5 grooming gang local inquiries. It comes after Safeguarding Minister Jess Phillips said last night that they will not hesitate to go further, despite accusations the plans were being watered down. It follows the government's refusal to hold a national inquiry, instead opting for a more localised approach. And the UK is in for a blast of sunshine, with temperatures set to hit 24 degrees in London and the southeast tomorrow, making it the hottest day of the year so far. But with the heat comes a serious warning. Fire crews say the risk of wildfires is extreme after weeks of dry weather and barely any rain. Blazes have already broken out across Northern Ireland and Scotland, with crews responding to dozens of wildfire calls overnight. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Sam Francis will have more for you in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Done. My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
And here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.2916 and €1.1636. The price of gold is £2,426.69 per ounce. And the FTSE 100's at 7,999 points.
Done. My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report. Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. The latest AI travel news from GBnews.com brings you updates on road delays today. The A85 at Tyndrum is restricted in both directions due to an incident. Caution is advised and longer travel times are expected. For those driving in Wales, the A55 westbound is closed between junction 23 at Llandúlas and junction 22 at Old Colwyn due to roadworks, with diversions in place. In Essex, 2 lanes are closed on the M25 clockwise between junction 26 and junction 27 following a collision. Road users should anticipate delays. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is the nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's coming up to 20 to 3. Now we're going to go back to that developing story from earlier that Hamas and lawyers representing Hamas are using the European Convention of Human Rights to challenge the proscription of Hamas as a terrorist organisation in the UK.
Well, let's discuss this further with the Shadow Foreign Secretary, Priti Patel. Dame Priti Patel, thank you so much for joining us. Now, you were Home Secretary when you chose to prescribe this organisation, if I remember correctly. What do you make of this legal application to Yvette Cooper?
Well, first of all, good afternoon.
obviously a stain on our democracy and on our laws, when we all know that Hamas is backed by Iran. Hamas are a terrorist organisation. They've been proscribed for very good reasons. They're part of a murderous regime. They murder and torture and brutalise innocent civilians, and they are responsible for the atrocities that took place in Israel on the 7th of October 2 years ago. So this is simply unacceptable. What I think is quite extraordinary, Emily, though, we've heard nothing from the British government, nothing from the department that I used to lead, a department where I basically took a very bold step forward to proscribe Hamas in all its forms, because they are a threat to the security of our country, they're a threat to British citizens, British nationals, and also, as we can see, they're a threat to all nationals of peace-loving countries around the world, and those countries that stand up for Western values, freedom and democracy, free speech, and that is simply unacceptable. I think it is absolutely absurd that the so-called legal representatives representing this terrorist organisation are trying to pervert our own domestic laws to effectively unwind the prescription that I put in place, that was backed, by the way, by Parliament and backed by many of our allies around the world, our defence and security allies. And that is something that I expect this government should speak about and stand firm over.
This seems to be the strange thing here, that a legal firm in this country that seems to deal with asylum cases in its spare time is now using this appeals system against the will not only of the then Home Secretary, but also of Parliament itself. I mean, there is no higher law in the United Kingdom than a sovereign Parliament. When the Supreme Court tries to make decisions, they appeal to the will of Parliament, not the will of the government. Given that Parliament has backed this, how on earth is there anything to go on?
So look, you've just asked a very important question. As you can imagine, I've got some very strong views on this. As Home Secretary, I put forward many laws, legislation on our statute books. I'm afraid not all governments have followed through on that legislation. But you've made a really important point. When I was Home Secretary, I constantly faced legal judgment by, quite frankly, left-wing lawyers. Lawyers, by the way, some of these organisations have supported Labour MPs and supported the Labour Party when it came to some of these asylum cases. I brought forward legislation which I think your viewers should be reminded of, which was stop the abuse of our immigration courts and tribunals, where we had so-called asylum seekers, i.e. people that came to our country illegally and had no legal basis to remain in our country. They would go to the immigration courts and tribunals again and again, basically trying to use the system to stay in our country. I brought forward laws to stop that, so we ended this merry-go-round. And now, of course, we've got the same lawyers, these so-called do-good-in lawyers, these lawyers basically on the left, who are basically on the side of people that come to our country illegally, break our laws, don't even abide by our laws, let alone follow the laws of our land and our country. These are legal representatives. I'm going to call them legal representatives. I think their own legal basis should be questioned. They are abusing our laws. They're effectively abusing the laws that they sign up to supporting through their legal practices. They're using laws now to basically poke their thumbs and noses at the British public and at the British legislators and say that, you know, they're supporting the most awful people that come to our country to do harm to our country.
I mean, we've seen so much abuse of the European Court of Human Rights, haven't we? Our human rights laws, whether it's defending foreign criminals in this country, preventing foreign criminals from being deported and the like. And now, apparently, these lawyers are going to be using the freedom of speech and freedom of expression that's in the European Court of Human Rights to try and defend Hamas in this country. I mean, is this a reason to get rid of these human rights laws?
Well, as you know, Emily, my party has very rightly said we're going to look at all of these options, and they're all options on the table. I think, first of all, let's just remember what Hamas are doing right now. They still hold captive 59 hostages. They are brutalising them, they've terrorised them, their families are going through absolute pain and agony, not knowing where their loved ones are. And yet, on the other hand, we've got these so-called lawyers basically now trying to circumnavigate and abuse our own laws and use the veil of the European Court of Human Rights, the European Convention of Human Rights, and dare I say it, free speech. What do these people know about free speech when Hamas is an organisation that is terrorising a population in Gaza, has abused people and the hostages that they have, kidnapped? It just is an insult to absolutely everyone. And quite frankly, I think your viewers and the British people across our country will be horrified by this. But my party is not in power. The question is, what is this Labour government going to do about this? Because they are the ones that have sided with,
it is important what your party's position is on the ECHR.
They voted against all these laws before.
And so far, your position as a party is to look at the convention, but not necessarily withdraw from it.
Well, we've got to find the right ways in which we change our laws, and just to basically say we would leave or repeal, that's not a way forward without actually having the ability to say this is how we are going to do it. And as someone, Tom, let me just say this to you. I took forward some very difficult and challenging legislation on asylum and on illegal migrants that, by the way, everyone in the Labour Party, the very people that are now in government, they voted against it. And now guess what? They're all sitting there silently on this new challenge and on this new abuse to our domestic laws, and basically people that are undermining the security, the national security and the national interest of our country.
OK, well, Dame Priti Patel, thank you very much. You're the Shadow Foreign Secretary. Great to have you on this afternoon. Well, there you go. Do you agree with the human rights lawyer that everyone deserves a legal team, even Hamas, a prescribed terror organisation? Or would Dame Priti Patel that this is an affront to our laws and British democracy, presumably?
Sure, I'll have a lot to say about that.
Yes,
but of course, another issue that we've been talking about today is, of course, grooming gangs, because the government seems to have rown back and then perhaps rown forwards again on their idea of holding local inquiries, more than one at the very least. Our national reporter Charlie Peters joins us in the studio. What do you make of this grooming gang hokey-cokey?
Well, in January they said they would be committing to 5 local inquiries, a number they read out in Parliament when the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, made that announcement following 2 weeks of quite significant public pressure. They said there would be a framework developed by a barrister, Tom Crowther. They said that these would be the pilot inquiries for more to follow. But then this week, we had an announcement 2 days ago from the Safeguarding Minister, Jess Phillips, who said that that approach was now going to be more flexible following feedback from local councils, and instead that £5 million of funding that was allocated to those inquiries would go on to other measures, including inquiries. But the commitment to 5, that number, was no longer in the statement. There was a lot of backlash to that as well. In the last 2 days, there's been significant opprobrium from many corners of society, including survivors and their families. And today, Home Office sources have told GB News that they think there will now be more than 5 inquiries, but they won't be drawn into saying where they actually will be. And no local authorities have come forward to say that they have requested one. And that's the key point. These are opt-in inquiries, Emily and Tom. They're not ordered. They are things that they have to agree to. And that's always been a key point of contention for every single inquiry we've seen into group-based exploitation. No authority has willingly gone into it until they first faced quite a lot of serious scrutiny.
Well, that's it. These things should not be opt-in, should they, or opt-out, which may be the case. Charlie Peters, thank you very much indeed for now.
Well, if you're in search of some sunshine this springtime, here's your travel weather for Europe.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun.
Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Heavy showers and thunderstorms impacting Portugal and southwestern parts of Spain, but elsewhere across Europe we are going to see improving temperatures through the week. Initially some heavy showers affecting Tenerife and Madeira, eventually moving into parts of Portugal and Spain, but as we head our way further east, largely settled, lots of sunny spells and improving temperatures too, starting off in the mid-teens but increasing through the course of the week. And there'll be plenty of sunshine as we head into next week, the odd shower still affecting Tenerife, and that's where we'll see the best of the temperatures too.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office.
It's quite a cloudy start across the southeastern half of the UK, but this cloud should eventually clear towards coastal areas, leaving a fine and dry day for many. Lots of warm sunshine, but we could still see some cloud lingering on around the coasts of the southeast, where we see a bit more of an easterly flow. But across more northern areas, a northwesterly wind direction, really clearing away that cloud, particularly across eastern parts of Scotland, northeastern England, where they've seen quite cloudy days over the last couple of days. But now there's going to be plenty more warm sunshine to come, so a much better day on offer. Though across coasts of East Anglia, parts of Kent, once again another cloudy day ahead and feeling quite cool here. Also a fair amount of cloud across the very far north of Scotland, but many areas seeing a warm day, plenty of wall-to-wall sunshine and feeling warm in that sunshine as well. Now, to end the day across Scotland, still plenty of cloud pushing in to the very far north, so not quite as much of a nice end to the day across Shetland and Orkney, but a lot of Scotland remaining largely dry. Similar across Northern Ireland, a few more clearer skies to end the day here, and much clearer across northern parts of England, parts of Wales and southern parts of England too. A clear end to the night, but that does mean temperatures are soon going to dip away. So it's going to be fairly chilly as we head into the overnight period. Once again, a chance of some rural frost, but it's not going to be turning quite as cold as it has done over recent nights, and we're likely to see some mist and fog patches towards dawn too. And once again, further areas of cloud pushing into the very far north of Scotland. This might bring some drizzle across Shetland by the time we reach the morning, but lows widely around 4 to 5 degrees Celsius, so not quite turning as cold as it has done over previous mornings. So it's going to be quite a bright start, likely seeing some mist and fog in places. This clearing quite quickly through the morning, leaving once again another fine and dry end to the day. Plenty of sunshine and feeling much warmer too. Still some cloud lingering on across the far north of Scotland. Still some drizzle here, but otherwise a fine day ahead. Highs of 21 to 22 Celsius.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off-limits. You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless. But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Right, well, Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, and Sir Keir Starmer, well, they announced their pledge for 13,000 more police officers and PCSOs on the streets.
They did indeed, 3,000 by next year.
Very good. But Kemi Badenoch has had this to say.
Well, I was really surprised that they made such a big announcement, given that this is a re-announcement from January. They talked about 100 million for 13,000 new police officers. That can't be right. That's just £7,000 per head. And it is less than the £118 million that the police services are going to be paying for the jobs tax. And that's what I've been hearing all across the country. People are very worried about the amount they're having to pay in these increased taxes. Businesses are closing. They're not hiring staff, they're not giving pay rises, and that's really what's worrying a lot of people.
Right, well, those were the words of the leader of the opposition, but I believe it is about time that we thought about leaving you.
Oh, well, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for your company this afternoon. We'll, of course, be back tomorrow at 12. But up next, it's the one and only Mr. Martin Daubney to see you through the next 3 hours. Martin.
Fantastic show, guys. Thank you very, very much. On my show today, I'll be joined by Ellie Reynolds, a sensationally brave rape gang survivor who was raped, kidnapped and tortured from age 13. Yet incredibly, no charges against her abusers were ever brought 6 years ago. She will now fall outside of the new ruling, which means there is a 2-year time limit. How can this be justice? How can this be allowed to happen? I'll speak to Ellie in today's show and tell her incredibly brave story and carry on talking about why the law needs to change. That's all coming on my show, 3 till 6 p.m. But first, here is your weather forecast, and I'll see you shortly.
Even though we'll see a cloudy start, it'll be a bright outlook for the rest of the day. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good afternoon. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. As we head into tomorrow, any overnight fog patches readily clearing away, leaving a fine end to the week with lots of warm sunshine across the country. And the reason for these settled conditions is because high pressure has dominated our weather over the last few days, bringing some cloud to eastern areas at times, but also plenty of sunshine too. Now we're going to see a return of this cloud